Queensland. Do we all remember a guy called Joh Bjelke Peterson? Now, Bjelke Peterson to be clear. Now, we're not going to be looking right at him just yet, but we're going to be looking at a few things that, there you go, you would have heard the name Joh Bjelke Peterson. We're going to be looking at a bit of things that I feel like we're kind of going back to the days of Joh Bjelke Peterson, and it's concerning. It's really fucking concerning. It's a real Elon Musk concerning moment. So Queensland is currently being gerrymandered and no one is talking about it. I just came across this, like literally, I just popped up on my phone a few days ago, something like that, and immediately I was like, this is something that would be interesting to talk about. So a little context. On Tuesday, I attended a community meeting with my local MP where I discovered that all MPs districts across Queensland have been redrawn by the LNP government and are in their final 2 weeks of public scrutiny before they lock it in until 2033. Unfortunately, nearly all examples of the district boundary changes are shifting in favour of an LNP re-election. Now, this is something to keep in mind. The LNP only ever like occasionally gets a win in Queensland on the state level, and then we kind of immediately go back to Labor. And that has been the trend. And then it's a long reign of Labor. And that has been the trend. Ironically, is he your Jeff Kennett? No, lol, but I heard things about him. Oh, is he a Jeff? I don't even know who Jeff Kennedy is. I'm going to assume he's like the someone else in another state kind of thing. Joh Bjelke Peterson's sort of like he's a mythical creature. And see, that's what I'm building this all up to. Because there's something about him when you read about him that you kind of it's the same with like Bob Catter, like vehemently disagree, but there's a charm to it. There's a charm that you can't deny, that you kind of just find enthralling, and we'll get to that in a moment. Even if the communities that had the MPs impact that the MPs impact of a majority vote against LNP. So what we're talking here is even if a majority of people in like districts or whatever are voting against LNP, it's these districts have been drawn up in a way where it's probably just still going to go LNP. So why? So the past week I've been putting this together. Okay, cool. We're gonna now look into it. Context: electoral redrawing happens every. Okay, I don't want to get with that. Context finished. Good job on reading all of that. Thank you. I feel like I've really learned a lot. Um, because we're gonna read a lot about Joh Bjelke Peterson, what he actually did, and in a moment. But I want to mainly focus on what's happening now, so that we can draw the comparison to back then. In April 2025, one of the first things the Crisafulli government did was appoint John Sosso. What a name. Sosso. Sosso, mate. As the electoral commissioner. This caused quite a bit of backlash and criticism from the opposition, the media, and Tony Fitzgerald himself. Oh. Tony, who led the landmark Fitzgerald inquiry, warned in the light of this appointment, I'm concerned that Queensland might be reverting to the bad old days of biased electoral boundaries, the notorious Queensland gerrymander. This backlash from opposition and media was ignored because bipartisan support was no longer required to choose the appropriate electoral commission. This is very important for later. Right. John Sosso, the Sosso sausage, was the only recommendation put forward by the Crisafulli government, and that was used as reason to dismiss criticism. No debate could be substantiated in comparison. Here is the important part. John Sosso has a long history of ties with the LNP, going all the way back to 1974. Fuck. It's always the same fucking people. Okay. where he joined the Young Liberals straight out of school. He was later personally recruited into the Bjelke Peterson government in 1984. No wonder. No wonder Christofouli picked him. And has described knowing John personally with a lot of respect for him. That's the thing, Joh Bjelke Peterson, like, he's one of those guys that there's been this weird gaslighting ever since, as if he never did anything wrong and he was just a good little birthday boy with broken glasses and just be nice. Come on, let him have his birthday cake. And it's like the dude took pride in having like indigenous activists just having the fuck belted out of them by the police. His direct appointment and involvement with the LNP continued when Campbell Newman's government formed in 2012. Soso was appointed Director General of the Department of Justice, and as we all know, the Elke Peterson government, Department of Justice, they're the exact same thing. During these appointments, he racked up a controversial reputation for dismantling the state's electoral watchdog. This is actually a lot worse than I was expecting. This is actually a lot worse than I was expecting. I was thinking like, okay, um, they've got a stooge in, you know? I wasn't expecting it to be literally, yeah, old mate like was mates with Joe and literally disassembled the watchdog of the electoral system. Ah! The thing that I'm pretty sure was created because of Joh Bjelke Peterson. Dismantling the state's electoral watchdog. John Soso, acting as Director General of the Department of Justice, was Director of the department responsible for terminating the Independent Crime and Misconduct Commission, which was the sole agency that held the responsibility of ensuring the Queensland Redistribution Commission, ensuring that the Queensland Commission was operating unbiased and without partisan interference. John Soso, under the LNP Campbell-Newman government, created in its place the Crime and Corruption Commission, structured to have greatly reduced powers. This included eliminating the QRC's, so this guy, the QRC's requirement to have bipartisan support for the approved. I mean, how much more explicit could you make this? For to have bipartisan support for the approved electoral commissioner and changing the CCC's, so the Crime and Corruption Commission's staffing structure so they are to be appointed yet again by the government of the day. So in other words, so they can be appointed, so they can have LNP people during an LNP government, or they, because that's the thing, I guess. Like they were probably trying to ensure that Campbell Newman stayed in because it was incredibly unpopular, and it was really just people just went with him because they just wanted a break from Labor, as we do in this I'm gonna say country, but in this state. Uh, and it clearly didn't work then because he became so unpopular that he still got voted out. He got voted out of his own district, and yet uh, it's come back around to be very useful. 2015's Campbell Newman's government was the last time until Christofouli's 2024 government that the LNP held power in Queensland. So when the Christofouli government won in 2024, one of the first things this government did was appoint John Sausage as Director General of State Development. Interesting, according to the Institute of Public Administration Australia, without any merit process. Oh, lovely. Then in April 2025, that same man, that same man, Sausage, was placed onto the commission responsible for redrawing the state's electoral boundaries, the same commission whose watchdog he was responsible for weakening a decade earlier. It's the rot. It's the rot that don't stop. The capitalist rot of civil society. That down. Delete it. I think I'm just fucking weak. Tony Fitzgerald raised serious concerns about this appointment directly. The Labour opposition also raised serious concerns. The media raised serious concerns. But because John Sausage had removed the requirement for bipartisan support in 2014, the Crisafulli government proceeded anyway, because it didn't matter anymore. This is a very important point. John Sausage has an extensive history of both working under the Joh Bjelke Peterson, the Bjelke Mandarin itself, as well as working to dismantle state anti-corruption watchdogs, focusing on the Electoral Commission process. This now all leads to the current Crisafulli government appointing John Sausage, the very man who removed the need for partisan support for appointment of the state's electoral commission, appointed to the role of the state electoral commissioner. John Sausage's career can be surmised as doing everything he can to get to this position so that he can do what is being done today. I would agree with this. I would agree with this assertion. Finally, that brings us to the actual gerrymandering going on right now. That being the current redistribution that the Queensland public have until April 9th to voice against. As part of the redistribution process, any member of the public or political party can lodge a formal submission to the QRC requesting and justifying specific boundary changes. This can be seen as the hopes and dreams of a best case scenario for an aspiring government, but it also is a forum for reasonable suggestions from the community. The submission process is the collection of all opinions within the state that the QRC has to work with and compromised with when deciding the new boundaries. The Electoral Commission has a responsibility to take all these perspectives into account while remaining logical and within the legally defined balance requirement required by the state when drawing its new boundaries. It's a process that requires the aptitude to float above bias. The LNP lodged a 110-page formal submission to the Commission laying out exactly what boundary changes they wanted across the entire state. This is completely within their right and should be encouraged, but when looking at the language, it tells a story. The first 17 pages are justification, and the last 93 pages are the redrawn electorates. Oh. The Gold Coast is the most telling out of all of the redefined boundaries. Within the LNP's submission explanation, they explicitly targeted Gavin. Gavin! Describing it as facing a declining enrollment base. Describing it as facing a declining base, needing to be reshaped for sustainability, then detailing precisely which suburbs should move in and which should move out. The Electoral Commission under John Sosso as the State Electoral Commission delivered that outcome almost to the letter. The Gold Coast Gavin electorate was an outlier in the heartland of LNP supporters. Ah, a seat Labour held a 0.6% margin, but after this redistribution now sits at a notional 5.4% LNP margin. That is good on them. You know, they really know how to fuck up a system. That's an absurd swing. That's not reflective of the population's attitude shifting. It's actually in spite of the declining enrollment base. It is solely because the lines have been shifted. That's not, but that's only one example of the current 93 districts. Which one is that actually? So it would be this. Yeah, so this should be it. Interesting. So you said the first 17, so I just want to say, yep, just zoom out. Albert, that's. Now I don't remember these places that well, but why is that there? Why is that there? Oh, yep, possibly. Yeah, I used to live near here. What the fuck is this? Barren River. I'm not too familiar. Interesting. Ainley, he just looks like. Yeah, that's great, like these weird wiggly lines, and then we get suddenly all out of nowhere straight lines, very straight lines, and a good old dong just hanging there. Maybe it's a ball sack. That's diabolical, lol. Yeah, so like this is what gerrymandering is, to be clear. This like if we don't know what gerrymandering is, this is what gerrymandering is. Whenever people talk about gerrymandering, obviously mainly in an American context, the right side top looks like Trump. Right side top. Oh my God. Ah, it does. It does. Like, so this is the thing with gerrymandering. Why isn't there a line there? Like, I mean, I'm doing the best that I can to like recognize, like, because Beenleigh, like I've been in Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Logan, so like the three main sort of southern urban areas, you would say. That's where I've lived it throughout my life in Queensland. So I'm trying to do a lot to like remember rough geography and towns and whatnot. Why not? Why? It's so explicit. Again, what is that? What is okay. Okay. That one seems more reasonable doing the following along with the river. Though what is that? You just got like isn't that just like the train yard or something? I think that's just the train yard. You gotta be fucking kidding. Well, here you go. This is probably the biggest fucking example of it. So see what they've done here, what they're doing, you see, oh, I see it. I saw it. What they're doing here is because the Gaza, because the Gaza district is more towards Labour, even though it wasn't even that highly swung to Labour. Uh, what they're doing is they're taking bits of it. That would that's what I imagine is happening here. They're taking little bits of that and putting it into the other districts. That way, even if you're in what would have normally been the Gavin district and you're voting Labor, it's going to get overwhelmed by all of the Liberal voters in what is now your new district, but like contains suburbs and residencies or whatever that is would never have associated with your area. That one's a little bit more realistic. I mean, what the fuck is that? What is that? Bundaberg. Okay. I mean, it's Bundaberg. Who fucking cares about Bundaberg? Bunda Bundamba. Burdekin. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this is the thing. This is what these fuckers do. They go real. I, how do I zoom? Yeah, here we go. They will get really into the wiggly. They get real into the fucking. Ooh, yeah, just. They get really into the wiggly. I mean, like, look at that. So, like, what is Townsville a part of? I guess we'll see that soon. But, like, that's probably gonna be its own, like, district right there, including that island. So, yeah, they get real wiggly with the lines just so that um, it's like feudal fiefdoms. I've been talking a lot about feudalism lately. It's like feudal fiefdoms just on the borders of like grand empires or whatever, and they're just constantly the borders are constantly going back and forth over little towns because as the kings fight back and forth over who wants to have control over one fucking pig shit farm. Burley, and what the heck? Wait, you can't have Palm Beach in Burley. That's not fucking realistic. Yeah, another great example. We getting real wiggly with these lines, real scribbly, wiggly. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Getting real squid. I mean, that's its own fucking district right there. What is that? Not able to... Ah, so that's that. Is this Bundaberg? Yeah. So that was we were looking at that one just before. Sorry, I don't want to make do all. I mean, yep. So again, we're just got. I mean, I don't know what these used to look like, obviously, but who cares about cans? I don't even know. Plenty of squibbly lines, plenty of squibbly lines, as if this area is so populated that you need to be putting that amount of attention into these fucking lines. Because then you got weird wavy lines like in Caloundra. And don't worry, it then gets back to the squibbly lines and the really extremely straight lines. And why does that need to exist? And this, that's just straight. Like, that's just explicit. That's so fucking explicit. Wiggly lines. We got all kinds of shapes here. Clayfield. Clayfield's like over here, though. And it gets to have control over all of this. Because normally it would be Hamilton would be its own thing. Or am I thinking federal? Oh, I might even be thinking council. Cleveland. They just get that island. Condamine. Plenty of bloody squibbly lines here. And then just a random, like, amorphous growth book. Yeah, I guess you would have a lot of random dots. Currumbin. So basically, Currumbin is just, that one I would have to remember the finer details. All squibbly line with random wavy line. Everton, Plenty Grove, plenty of squibbly lines, squibbly lines. Oh, here you go. That's Gavin. That's the one that they're really trying to bite into. So yeah, notice how a lot of Gavin is now just the highways, motorways, and um oh yeah, highways and motorways. Like interesting little branch off there. Interesting you don't include this area, even though I would assume based off the roads they're fairly connected. So this is how they do it. This is what they do. They rip these districts apart and like do that. And then do this as well. I mean, what the hell is that? Weird little growth. Gladstone, squibbly lines, very squibbly lines. Like that is just we got a highway going through here and we take all of that. Bang. Green slopes. What the fuck is that? Gimpy, the most squibbly out of all of them so far. Harvey Bay, probably the most reasonable so far. Squibbly, squibbly, Inala, get a good bit of squibble, and then straight lines ish. Indrapili, I mean, what? And random squibbly lines. Squibbly lines with random stuff. It's very squibbly lines. Squibbly lines. Squibbly lines. Squibbly lines. So many fucking squibbly lines, which is the primary point to all of this kind of shit. You get some real weird looking shapes. Like, what is this? Just put them together, man. Just put it as one. A random bit of growth on Nudgy. Pimpama. Pine Rivers. Pumice-Stone. Red Cliff. What the hell is this? Whatever that is. Again, squibbly lines. Robina. Weirdly not that squibbly. And I think that is because it's an extremely commercial district. So, the LNP knows they have that locked in. Rockhampton. Then go. All right, we're almost done. Scenic Rim. It, it's. I feel like it's almost like a Pokemon outline. Some of these are basically just like Pokemon. South Brisbane. All right, here we go. That's fucking dumb. That is so dumb. Squibbly lines. Southport. Rather not squibbly. I wonder why that might be. A significant commercial district in Brisbane, not Brisbane, sorry, Gold Coast. That has always been a L&P safe place. Springfield. Blue lines mixed in with straight lines. Springwood. That. Stafford. Rather not that squibbly. Sunnybank, not that squibbly, but we do have a weird growth here. We have some weird growths there and there. There's a bear in there. Noise the tail. Surface Paradise is just. I mean, like, you would think, like, it would be reasonable, but then. That one's not as outrageous. Toowoomba North. Squibbly lines. Toowoomba South. Wait. Okay. And that's interesting. Interesting. Why do they get that when it's kind of more? I guess it's in line. That's just a very weird one. Townsville, got a bit of a squibble, but to be fair, that's more like just geographical boundaries. Squibbly lines. Victoria Park. It just looks like a plus, but really thick. Squibbly lines. Really wavy squibbly lines. Like, why not just go joink, joink? The squibbly. Woodridge. Who cares about Woodridge? Urongapilly. Again, what is going on there? Okay, and then that's that. Yeah, that is fucking insane. That is insane. Like, I'm not going to claim to be some sort of electoral commission expert or whatever with redesigning districts or whatnot, but just at a first glance, that's so obviously corrupt. But that's only one example. Yep. From my perspective, some of the most daunting redrawn districts are along the Logan and Gold Coast city borders. I noticed that. Specifically with the renamed Beanley electorate, I noticed that as well. Oh, by the way, a lot of these electorates are being renamed, which makes it just that bit more muddy to explain. Beanley is a brilliant example of why this harms not just the Labour voters, but also the LNP voters within this redrawn district too. The term everyone who writes a submission needs to know is community of interest. Beenleigh is a Logan town, which lies in the dead centre between Brisbane and the Goldie. Current Macalester electorate captures it and the surrounding. How much do I have to read? Oh no, not much more. Captures it and the surrounding communities that actually depend on and are involved in Beenleigh. Spanning halfway up the Beenleigh Redland Bay Road, all the way down to Bars Scrubs. Under the proposed redistribution, the Beenleigh-Redland Bay Road Corridor, which is the LNP's own submission describes as a key transport link, is being used to justify pulling communities like Carbrook and Mount Conan out of Labor-preferred Macalester and into the Redlands, which is a LNP-dominated city. So the idea is they're going like, oh well, I guess that road, you these towns or communities, whatever, are basically a part of the other one. These are communities that currently share services and infrastructure with Beenleigh, such as the train line, which are getting redistributed away from where they have actualized stakes. This area is poised to be misrepresented or ignored by the future Redlands MP. Now, because all electorates must hold between a specific portion of the population, McAllister's district has been spread south across the Logan River. The Gold Coast suburbs of Yatala, Ormo, and Ormo Hills are being consumed and welcomed to Logan's Beenleigh, despite the fact that these suburbs have little to no reason or connection to Beenleigh. Yep. These suburbs have stakes in their existing communities, such as Coomera, which is towards the Gold Coast. Yet the reason they were added is because these Gold Coast suburbs are predominantly LNP favouring, so their addition only waters down the Labor favouring votes of the Logan suburbs. Right. This seat, which currently adequately represents its physical community, go from a 1.9% Labour margin to a 0.8% LNP margin. You fucking kidding me? So the suburbs who have a stake in the communities lose their representation, and the incoming suburbs who have had stake in their own their representation. Every citizen has worse representation because of this. This is the effect of gerrymandering, 100%. And that's the thing. You can only really go so far with gerrymandering. There does come a point where it does start to become, what is it, spoiled returns in a sense. Like you end up getting not as good of, like you can, like this is an issue they're actually having in America, some of the states in America where they've already gerrymandered them really big time, and they're wanting to gerrymander them even further to obviously try and maintain Trump's hold. But what the problem they're looking at is if they keep gerrymandering it, it's actually going to potentially result in a larger Democrat win. Like, there's really no much more gerrymandering they can do, but they are so insistent on doing it that way. Gold Coast suburbs are being consumed by Logan towns. This is not a Labour voters problem, nor is this an LNP voters problem. It is a your local MP no longer has any reason to represent you problem. The only people that benefit from this are the LNP politicians, not the people. I can't speak for other districts, but the redistribution is occurring across the whole of the state. If you don't want your electorate to be misrepresented and you want your vote to matter, you need to voice your position through the Queensland Redistribution Commission's website. So there you go, there's that. Let's chuck that up there for later. Though I will say, I'm not hopeful that they're going to shit. We all have until April 9th. What is it now? It is the 26th, so these are in March 31. So 1, 2, 3, 5. We have 14 days, 19 from when they did it, to spread the word and scrutinise the proposed redistribution. Every Queenslander needs to look at the redistribution map and determine if their community centre, which they are predominantly involved in, where they have a stake in, where you work, where your kids go to school, and where your doctor is, etc., are adequately represented within the redistributed boundaries. I'm going to tell you, bro, no, there were way too many squibbly lines. Too many squibbly lines. Share this. Okay. Wait. Oh, that must be so that you can know about your own. Okay, that makes sense. TLDR, John Sausage, the guy who weakened Queensland's Anti-Corruption Commission by removing requirement for bipartisan support of the State Electoral Commissioner, was appointed to be the State Electoral Commissioner and is currently redrawing the next 7 years worth of state elections. He's been a collaborator with the LNP for over 50 years. And I mean, hey, he was a yeah, Nationals would have been prior. 2033 is going to be the next time this happens. Are we seriously going to let LNP control the state until then with this track record? This should be the biggest story in the state at the moment, but somehow no one is talking about it. What? Sorry for the rant. This is one of the most important democratic traditions in our state that requires your input before. Okay, okay. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice, and I'm not calling anyone corrupt or encouraging violence. But I did read through the Electoral Act 1992 and saw the plain as day rort, which is our state redistribution commission. So I, uh, I'm very intrigued to see what happens following all of this. I honestly think every community group, every activist group in some means can find a point here to go out and protest, to encourage people to send submissions. I'll probably send a submission. Uh, this is daunting. This is really scary. Consultation. Yeah. Is there anything you can really do about it though? Um, no. Like the guy pointed out, 2033 is the next time that 2033 is the next time that we get that these districts would get a chance to be redrawn after if they like if these ones were to be taken like so I do wonder like is this like okay if we do submit if people were to do submissions is that just to say all right then do different boundaries or scrap it all together and leave it as it is? That's what I would be really interested to know. Maybe it's a bit of like either or kind of situation. But outside of that, outside of basically what I've shown you, fucking that sucks to be Queensland then. Yeah, yeah, this is our history, even though this is now. But, you know, gonna need to get something to eat at some point. I'm hungers. So this also leads me to I did cover this at some point, but I scrapped go. So as we know, I'm going to do this one real quickly. Pro-Palestinian groups. Hang on, let me take a step back. Basically, it's illegal to say that phrase, this phrase, it is now illegal to say. I don't even know if I can say this right now. I have seen videos, I have seen news pieces where journalists are literally they say the phrase to describe what they saw, what was on a shirt or what was on a sign, what someone said, which then led to them being arrested, and then the journalist literally had to say, well, I can say it though because I'm saying it as a journalist in a journalist capacity, which actually fucking terrifies me because he's kind of like doing a reverse trigger warning, like trigger warning to the government. I'm not advocating for Palestine. I'm just telling the news. If you couldn't tell, given the format of what you're seeing me in, it's fucking insane. This is crazy. Uh, Yeah, one had it on a singlet. I think that was the lady who was arrested. There was a 33-year-old. I do know Liam Perry. He's a guy with SALT, socialist alternative to be clear. And then yeah, that's right for using the phrase. I'm pretty sure he was like used a megaphone, but I might be wrong. And then yeah, an 18-year-old woman was later arrested in the city. I'm pretty sure she was the one that had the singlet that said it, which is common. This contested phrase, which is commonly used by pro-Palestinian groups at rallies, was one of two deemed anti-Semitic by the state government last week. Now we have like I think there's literally like 5,000 Jewish people in Queensland. There's not a lot of Jews in Queensland, funnily enough. And this was apparently done to help them. I'm going to say a crazy idea. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this was done as a means of making it easier to arrest people. Because now we are literally arresting people for their speech. Now, obviously, this has not been unheard of in Australia. This has been a thing that's always been around. We do not have free speech in this country. We never have. I worry that we never will. And we are now many steps further away from ever potentially getting it. Sad to not see more civil disobedience over the banned phrase. Yeah, I will admit I was a bit disappointed that everyone didn't just say it. Like fuck it, fuck you guys, we're just gonna all say it, try and lock all of us up. This is something I have been saying over and over again to people, and I know this might even actually get me in trouble for saying this. People need to be more willing to do things that could end up running into trouble with the police. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, all right? Like, how much further can this go before we start having to call their bluff? How much more can this go? It is literally illegal to say a phrase in regard that is just showing support of another, not even a country really at the moment, but like of a people because they're being genocided. That is what this is. We are literally getting, there are laws, there are laws banning people and leading to people getting locked up just over a phrase about something that's not even in our own country. I don't mean that as some sort of nationalist, like, get rid of foreign wars. Don't talk about foreign conflicts in my country. No, I don't mean that. We are so much more willing to get arrested down here. Yeah, I think Queensland's always had a bit of a Queenslanders have always had a bit of a lax attitude as well, unfortunately. So there is that. It frustrates me, man. Maybe that's why they don't bring those laws in. Down where you are, yeah, I mean maybe, maybe. I mean they did basically the same thing in New South Wales, and while there was arguably more backlash, kind of, um, they had success in ultimately achieving what they wanted, that being the state government, New South Wales state government. So yeah, it it is really frustrating seeing the the approach some protesters do take. Well, not some, but like I honestly find it to be a fault of organizers more than anything. And I don't mean this to be some sort of like bashing the left kind of thing. It's more like, guys, you need to read the writing on the wall here. Soon it will literally be you've got a Palestinian flag, you jail. Are you gonna wait till then? You're gonna wait till you say the word Palestine and that gets you put in jail, Like, and I don't like this like it can be funny to the approach of look at this. There was a thing, there was a meme or whatever, because there's a song from guy does You're the voice. uh Farney, Farnsey, John Farnham. There was a song he had done where it was something like from the stream to the sea or something like that. Like it's very close, but it's not spot on. Uh, and there was a lot of jokes about like, oh, well, I guess we'll be using this from now on. And that was funny, I will admit. I had a good laugh, especially because of the way that the meme was designed, so to speak. But I don't like the idea of it ultimately. I think you're kind of giving them the power there. You're telling them that you have to that you're cooperating. People shouldn't be cooperating with this. This is ridiculous. They were ready to make arrests, and it was very clear that they came to make arrests. Jewish Board of Deputies President Jason Steinberg said it was heartening to see police enforcing the new hate speech laws. I love it's really heartwarming when I see police cracking down on the average person. He said that phrase, yet he said it, so why didn't he get in trouble, has been used to intimidate kids and intimidate Jewish people in workplaces and on the streets. I refuse to accept that that's true. Maybe some kids have been dickheads using it as like a bully tactic, but I actually frankly refuse to accept that that is the case. I want to see the fucking evidence. The Jews will be exterminated. That is what that statement means. No, it doesn't. That people would say that if that's what they meant. Hang on one sec. Um, oh, fuck my neck. So, all right. So we've got redistribution of, no, sorry, not redistribution, redistricting slash gerrymandering. We've got, I don't even want to say free speech crackdown because we've already do that in Australia, but like we've got needless free speech crackdowns for the purpose of really just targeting protesters. Because that's another thing. It's primarily to target protesters. It's not even like I doubt someone like unless they were really gonna go the whole mile and go, all right, we want cameras and mics everywhere so that we can hear if we so that we can know if we hear the terrorists talking amongst themselves. Like I doubt they're gonna do that. Students for Palestine convener Ella Gutteridge criticizes the police today. Good. Another students convener Connor Knight agreed yesterday's police presence was massively disproportionate. They came looking to, yep, they came looking for a fight. All right. I think people are going to look back on this the same way they do now on the Joh Bjelke Peterson as an outrageous time in Queensland where the right to protest, the right to freedom of expression and speech was curtailed. I mean, that's an interesting thing as well. Like, do people anymore, like especially people who were still around during Joh Bjelke Peterson, do they even understand anymore why it was a bad time? Do they even really like recognize what it meant? It means all living together in equality. Yeah, I know. I assume you're meaning the from the river to the sea. Like from all I understand, like, and I'm not saying I've got the statement down packed, but my immediate understanding of the phrase is it just is a call for Palestine to be free. The blah blah, Palestine will be free. That's all it is about. But that's the thing, we don't want to talk about how the Palestinians aren't free, because that would be an inconvenient conversation. So there's that. Then we have this. Queensland looks to lift ban on political donations from developers. To be clear, not game developers. That might have been more interesting. No, property developers. So again, another tick on the Joh Bjelke Peterson checklist. A ban on political donations from property developers could be lifted in Queensland as the state government moves ahead with a proposal. Its corruption watchdog has warned could increase, and that's not good. If the current corruption watchdog that we've already looked into has been like heavily eaten into, if even they're warning about how this could increase the risk of corruption ahead of the 2032 Olympic Games, I think they have a point. While the property industry has commended the move, one expert has called the proposal a retrograde step for electoral fairness. See, I'm gonna, oh, hang on. This will put trade unions, property developers, and anyone else who wants to donate on a level playing field. So they say. However, this is the thing, right? So what happened was, it was around, I think it was 2019, but it might have been a little bit before then. There turned out to be a bit of a problem with a lot of the councils in Queensland. Because obviously councils is the next level down. So in Brisbane, for example, we have a council for the entirety of Brisbane, and it even includes sections of Brisbane that sections of Queensland that you probably wouldn't have even thought were actually considered part of Brisbane. And it's the biggest, I think it's actually the biggest council district area, like not district, the biggest council electoral area or whatever in the whole country. I might be wrong by that, but I'm pretty confident with that statement. And what was I going to say? There was a bit of a problem where a lot of these councils, mainly I think it was Gold Coast. What the heck? Oh, my screen just went black for a moment. Uh, I think it was mainly Gold Coast, some in Brisbane, but also Logan. But who knows, even elsewhere, were a lot of just it was all fucking corrupt and hella intertwined with the property developers giving hell uh, bags of money basically. So what ended up happening, leveling the playing field, you bastards. Okay, 2017, on the recommendation of the Crime and Corruption Commission. Oh, maybe this isn't the same thing. Oh no, CCC. I think that was what we just read before, wasn't it? Yeah. So literally the thing that John Sausage created under Ellen P. Campbell Newman, no matter how much it doesn't really care about corruption, even it could recognize the potential for damage done here. Doesn't that tell you something? Here we go, which inquired into allegations of corruption among some candidates who ran in the Gold Coast, Ipswich, Logan, and Moreton Bay council elections. There you go. Says it perfectly. Anyway, the premier at the time, uh, uh, Palaszczuk, Anastasia Palaszczuk, basically not only decided to, follow through on the recommendation of the ban, as it says here, that the commission recommended a ban on property developers' donations on the local government level, but she also did it for the state elections. Obviously, can't do it for, the federal government. That would have been based. Uh, you know, I've had my issues in the past with Anastasia Palaszczuk, but that's a pretty decent thing to do. That's a pretty cool uh, policy approach or policy enactment. I don't know what you would really call that exactly. But no, now we're getting rid of that. Oh yes, here we go. The Property Council of Australia, because they were fucking insane with this, wrote to the inquiry reiterating its long-standing support for the repealing of the ban. Doing so would ensure fair and equitable treatment for the property industry alongside other sectors and unions, Jess Care, the council's Queensland executive director, said. There was something even more insane that she said. Yeah, here we go. It is crucial that the property sector is afforded the same treatment as all other industries and is enabled to contribute evenly to Queensland's democracy. Doesn't that tell you something about how evil this all is? Like, they don't even have an argument for why they should be allowed to give more money. It is purely just treat us the same. We should be getting equal treatment. But no, you dumb fucks. There was a reason why this was banned. Because you weren't doing it in a fair and just way. The demonization of the property sector, because, they've really received a lot of demonization and, it's been really unjustified. There was no reason for it. In recent years has had a serious impact on industry confidence. Here we go. This is the statement. Industry confidence, community acceptance of our industry, and in turn, the supply of projects that provide a place for Queenslanders to sleep, work, and play. Evil, evil shit that is. Property developers have always had a lot of power in Brisbane. Sorry, in Queensland. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same in every other state, frankly. I doubt it's not. But they've had a very special relationship with conservative governments in Queensland. Political donations from property developers are also banned in New South Wales and the ACT, but no such rules at the federal level, where the property industry is among some of the largest donors. And I doubt that we're ever going to get it. Well, I mean, man, Palaszczuk should have just like gone, no, federal government, I demand. The bill before Parliament seeks to make several amendments to Queensland's electoral laws, including banning prisoners serving. That's right, and that's another thing. For some weird reason, this law that's supposed to amend the electoral law for the sake of allowing property developers to donate is also a prison sentence law for completely unrelated reasons, including banning prisoners serving a sentence of one or more from voting in state and local elections. So I guess that's how they tied it in. So if you serve one sentence or more, you are not able to vote in state or local elections. I don't, and it doesn't say, from what I understand, there is no sort of expiry date on that. That's insane to me. That is literally just stripping people of their rights. Like, I don't give a fuck if you've been in prison for 25 years. Come out, you've done your time, man. Gotta vote. I mean, I think that prisoners should still be allowed to vote regardless, but if we're gonna have it that they can't while they're in prison kind of thing, at least have it that once they're out they can. Like, what's the point of this otherwise? It will also extend the existing cap on political donations, which currently applies to the entire 4-year election period, to financial years instead, increasing the amount that donors can give to political parties in an election cycle. Oh, I had misread this kind of thing before, obviously in a different way back, but I had actually interpreted it as it wasn't that it was banned, but it was that it was capped. So it is that it's was banned, and so they're unbanning it, but they're also increasing the cap for all donors. Oh, I can't imagine that being a problem, especially when we're talking about financial years, because unions are very concerned about the financial year. Sorry, that might have been a bit distorted, that one. Watson said this change would put the two major political parties at further advantage ahead of minor parties. Independents and small parties, crossbenchers, Greens can't expect that kind of funding and will never get it. Justice, Integrity and Community Safety Committee is due to table its report on the bill uh, 6, which, yep, all right. So, donor corruption, specifically of property developers, third tick. Yeah, third tick in regards to the Joh Bjelke Peterson um, theory, if you will. All right, this is another one, and I want to also take the opportunity to give a little shout out to Norris Street. They're amazing. They do a lot of helping of the homeless, mainly in the Bay region. Sometimes cross back over in Brisbane, but they're mainly more Bay. They're amazing. Um, Started by a guy who has lived experience being homeless. I don't know how long, but like a very long time of drug addiction. Very open. Guy who has taken his life experience into service, serves his helping the going out to disconnected, because Moreton Bay is sort of point in the greater Brisbane sort of area, if you kind of include bits that aren't obviously considered Brisbane anymore. But it sort of is it's the beginning of where it gets a lot more rural, a lot more regional, and so there's a lot of disconnected communities. Not like disconnected as in they don't have electricity, internet, or water or anything like that, but disconnected in the sense of you wouldn't even know these places are there. Like you would have to go kind of driving off in a on a like a rural road kind of thing. Not always, but yeah. And he's done they've done amazing stuff. But I noticed a couple days ago, 8 days ago now, that they put out this post about a new Queensland bill being considered. I gotta say, this fucking Queensland Parliament, they are bashing out these bloody bills. They are getting them through. Over the past few days, I've been reading through a new piece of proposed legislation introduced to Queensland Parliament on 3rd March 2026. It is called the Expanding Adult Time and Taking a Strong Stance of Drugs and Antisocial Behaviour Amendment Bill 2026. Now, for anyone who isn't a Queenslander here, if you aren't aware, the expanding adult time, adult crime was a term, or more so, the adult time, adult crime was adult crime, adult time was a term that was popularized for the sake of the election, and it's basically the reason why the LNP won. It is based off of nothing. It is based off of no evidence. It is antithetical to proven approaches that actually work. It is just a means of throwing, let's be honest, Indigenous kids into the prison system. And then we have it taking strong stance on drugs and the antisocial behavior. This has been a term that also locally, the Brisbane Council, getting real quick with these now, the Brisbane Council has been pushing as an anti-homeless propaganda tool. Antisocial behavior. No fucking wonder they're antisocial, man. They're getting fucked over by everyone. This idea that there's a few antisocial people amongst the homeless, therefore we have to kick them all out of the parks. We have to kick them all out of the encampments. That's what it's led to. I've written on this as well. The antisocial behavior uh, uh, line is bullshit. They made it the fuck up. They made it the fuck up. My source, I made it the fuck up. Like most legislation, it's long. Okay. The bill proposes the creation of designated business and community precincts. These would be areas declared by regulation where police would have stronger powers. In those precincts, police could require a person to state their name and address, issue move on directions, use handheld scanners, and in some cases, issue banning notices preventing a person from returning to that area for a period of time. Yep, folks, we are getting as far. So keep in mind. So this is an interesting thing. This was something that came up in a space I was in recently. The term 15-minute cities or 15 what's the term again? Is it 15-minute cities? I think it's 15-minute cities. That's a term in reference to like not you are stuck within the city. It's a term to mean urban planning should be done in a way to prioritize allowing a community or multiple communities within the city to be within the community so that they're not that it's not just constant highways and motorways crossing into everything, that it's not full of car parks purely for the purpose of people who don't live in the city, who don't live in these areas, uh, to come and enjoy it, while the people who do live in it, who do work in the city, suffer. That is the point of the 15-minute city talking point. It is about making cities more for the people who live in the city. However, this is what conservatives are thinking when they hear 15-minute cities. The idea that you are unable to enter certain precincts because the cops have now told you you're not allowed to, and as in they've literally banned you from returning to that area for a period of time. Period of time, unknown what that period of time is. I doubt it's ever going to be specified. I doubt there'll ever be a cap on it. The bill itself does not say that a person can be moved on simply for being homeless. However, the legal test in the bill refers to behavior, presence in an area, previous move on directions, and whether someone is considered to be disrupting the safety or amenity of a precinct. I wonder what that means. Like, I don't want to pretend as if, all homeless people are actually super clean and super like they don't trash the place at all. Yeah, of course you're going to get a lot of trash, partly because the council never actually cleans this shit up. But like it's going to happen as long as they keep being homeless. But you could kick them out of these areas, and they're just going to be homeless elsewhere. So I don't really see how this is helping. And this is where the real world matters. Many people sleeping rough already exist in CBD areas, parks, transport hubs, and near services because that is where food support and safety are most accessible. If these areas become designated precincts, just so gross, the new powers could still have a significant impact on people experiencing homelessness, depending on how they are applied. There is a safeguard written into the bill. A person has a reasonable excuse to enter a restricted area if they are doing a necessary task, such as receiving medical treatment, accessing a support service, obtaining food or medicine, using banking services. Of course, we want to allow them to be able to go to the bank or accessing public transport. Those protections matter, but laws like this also raise an important question. When there is a housing crisis, when rents are at record highs, when social housing wait lists are years long, and when more people than ever are being forced to sleep in parks and cars, what problem are we actually solving? 100 fucking percent. They don't want us talking about the housing crisis. They don't want you thinking about the housing crisis, and they are going to continue punishing people who are being affected by it. Because moving people on does not solve homelessness. It simply moves human suffering from one street to the next. This bill is still moving through the parliamentary process, but it is something worth paying attention to. If we truly want safer communities, the rules enforcement. Real solution is housing, support services, and long-term pathways out of homelessness. Until those things exist at the scale they are needed, the reality remains the same. You cannot move someone on from homelessness if they have nowhere to move. 100%. See, like, where's this guy going to go? Obviously, we don't have a guy here, but like, where's he going to go? You know, if you tell him he's got to leave, where's he going to go? I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen in person when where the cop has been telling the homeless person, you're going to have to go. And then they're asked, where to? They have no response because they know. It's just they know that if they do respond with anything, mind you, then they kind of admitting that this whole thing is fucked up to begin with. I've seen that happen in person, and it's an extremely gross situation to be in. It's just it's very depressing. All right, so number four for Joh Bjelke Peterson, because he also didn't like the homeless, but also loved giving the police more power. He loved that shit. Now, there's so many other things that I could be looking at right now that's going on in Queensland, that's going on under Christofouli. I mean, there's the whole Christofouli's government basically not only defunded, but full on closed the two only drug testing locations in Queensland, which was, I think it was in Logan and Brisbane. Maybe it was Gold Coast and Brisbane, I can't remember. But we only had two, and they closed them both down. Didn't really save much money by doing that, but they did it. And their argument was, oh, well, we think that encourages drug use. No, it doesn't. If anything, it actually ends up discouraging it because when people go to get their drugs tested and they find out that it's got other shit in it, they're probably not going to take it anymore. Just saying, do a bit of thinking on this. It ain't that hard. But I want to now look at Joh Bjelke Peterson because this man is a gem. Maybe not a gem, but he is. I don't think we're going to get Christopherly, the Elka Peterson. You know, I don't think that's what we're looking at here. I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if his own party kicks him out. Like, you know, they switch him out for another guy because he's kind of become so unpopular because of a lot of these things. But that's the thing. You always need a fall guy. You always need a fall guy, and then that's how the what is it? The villain revolving structure, the revolving door structure works. You get out your fall guy, and you bring in your next one, and then he becomes the fall guy. You get in your next one. Just want to check. Oh yeah, okay. How'd this look? Oh, that'll be fine. Okay, cool, cool. Just want to make like covered. That's old Joe. That is the Joe in 1980. So I don't really care too much to look at this. I guess we could look at it. Was an Australian politician and farmer who served as Premier of Queensland from 1968 to 1987. Now that alone would make any person go, damn, dude. 19 years, that is impressive when you think about it. As leader of the Queensland National Party, earlier known as the Country Party. So he was a big deal within the National Party. He was renowned for his political longevity and the institutional corruption that pervaded his government. That's fun. He was born in New Zealand. We need a deal. Okay. What is it with all the Kiwis coming here and becoming like Nazis? Like I don't get it. Thomas Sewell, Joh Bjelke Peterson. I'm sure there's others I can think of. The Danish immigrant parents, hence the last name. Family moved to Australia when he was a child and settled on farming property at Kingaroy, Queensland. He left school at the age of 14, went into farming. Bjelke Peterson was elected to the Kingaroy Shire Council in 1946 and to the Queensland Legislative Assembly in 1947. We kind of did a big leap. I don't know. He would serve in state parliament for over 40 years, holding the seats of Nanango from 1947 to 1950, and then Barambah 1950 to 1987. That one. I just want a map. Never mind. Peterson was appointed as government minister in 1963 and succeeded as premier and Country Party leader in 1968 following the death of Jack Pizzey. That's a funny name. Pizzey. And look at his face. Ain't that adorable? He would lead the party to 7 consecutive election victories, governing in coalition with the Liberal Party until 1983. His first 3 electoral victories saw his party benefit from a system of rural malapportionment, later nicknamed the Bjelke which was, you know, the whole gerrymandering thing, which allowed him to remain premier despite frequently receiving a smaller number of votes than the state's 2 other major parties. The system earned Bjelke Peterson the nickname the Hillbilly Dictator. That's right, Hillbilly Dictator. We had a language back then. Regardless, he was a highly popular figure among conservative voters, and over the course of his 19 years as premier, he tripled the number of country national voters and doubled the party's percentage vote. No wonder he was very popular. After the Liberal Party pulled out of the coalition government in 1983, Bjelke Peterson reduced his former partners to a mere eight. Oh, yeah. Reduced his former partners to a mere 8 seats in an election held later that year. In 1985, Bjelke Peterson launched a campaign to move federal politics to become prime minister, though the campaign eventually said, I don't think you could do abortions at this time. The only things that were being aborted in Queensland around this era was just the campaign. Earned himself a reputation as a law and order politician with his repeated use of police force against street demonstrators and strong-arm tactics with trade unions, leading to descriptions of Queensland under his leadership as a police state. Starting in 1987, this administration came under the scrutiny of a royal commission into corruption and its link with state government ministers. Bjelke Peterson was unable to recover from the series of damaging findings, and after initially a party vote that replaced him as leader, retired from politics on the 1st December 1987. 2 of his state ministers, as well as the police commission, Bjelke Peterson had, as well as the police commission, Bjelke Peterson, unusually appointed from junior inspector rank. We'll get into that probably. Then later knighted, were it was fucking insane, man. Were jailed for corruption offense. And in 1991, Bjelke Peterson too was tried for perjury over his evidence to the Royal Commission. The jury failed to reach a verdict as the jury foreman was a member of the Young Nationals, a member of the Friends of Joh group, and Bjelke Peterson was deemed too old to face a second trial. You Fucking bastard. Bjelke Peterson was widely regarded as corrupt and used threats of defamation to quell reporting of allegations. It was bad. Like it was really bad. It was like we're talking shit where like you'd have like the police commissioner, not commissioner, sorry, minister or whatever it be, um, on like the news, and he would straight up say to the journalists like, "Keep your job." I'd probably start not asking those questions, man. You want to keep that job? You know, like it was insane. During the Bjelke Peterson era, the state underwent considerable economic development. Keep that in mind. He was one of the most well-known and controversial figures of 20th century Australian politics because of his uncompromising conservatism, including his role in the downfall of the Whitlam federal government, political longevity, and the institutional corruption of its government. Many aspects of the projects that contributed to economic development were achieved through the bribery of government minister Russ Hinds to gain approvals and funding that would have otherwise been refused. Ah, doesn't that sound familiar now? So we're gonna early life. Don't really want to know much about. He's 30. He was a prosperous farmer and businessman, obtaining a pilot's license early in his adult life. Joker Peterson also started aerial spraying and grass seeding to further speed up pasture development in Queensland. Take a wild guess. Didn't like Indigenous. He's like a weird opposite of Bob Catter. But guess what? This is where Bob Catter comes from. Bob Catter was in not only the party of Bjelke Peterson, but was in the government of Bjelke Peterson. He was a rep under Bjelke Peterson. He loved Bjelke Peterson. The support, oh no, sorry. After failing a 1944 plebiscite against the sitting member to gain country party and state seat of Nanango, based on Kingaroy, Bjelke Peterson was elected in 1946 to the Kingaroy Shire Council, where he developed a profile in the country party. With the support of local federal member and Shire Council chairman Sir Charles Adaman and state opposition leader Sir Frank Nicklin, he gained country party endorsement for Go and was elected a year later at age 36, going on to give regular radio talk, becoming secretary of the local Nationals branch. He would hold this seat, renamed Barambah, in 1950 for the next 40 years. That alone is insane. The Labour Party had held power in Queensland since 1932, and Bjelke Peterson spent 11 years as an opposition member. Yeah. All right, hang on just 1 second. hope we're enjoying the history lesson. So I want to take this moment now. So now we're getting into the rise to power bit, and this is where things get funny. He was, I believe, the Trump before a Trump, or Trump. You can see so many elements of what is now Trump, or at least the base of Trump, in Bjelke Peterson. Now, obviously, like fascists, Nazis, far right, alt right, whatever terms you want to use. Um, ooh, I've got myself a bogan now. They all kind of follow the same trends of, you know, political politics, I'll just say. But he really did. He was groundbreaking in all sorts of ways that I feel like we haven't really seen the like the next evolution until it was Trump. And that's why I find this so interesting. So the rise to power. On 31st May 1952, Bjelke Peterson married typist Florence Gilmore, who would later become a significant political figure in her own right. Oh, well, yeah. In 1957, following a split in the Labour Party, the non-Labour parties came to power for the first time in 32 years, and only the second time in 42. Nicklin became premier, with the Liberal Party as junior party in a non-Labour coalition. Now, this is something, yeah, here we go. This was a reversal of the situation at a federal level. Most states where a coalition existed in sense, the Liberals were the senior party in the coalition. But this was different because they didn't have as much success, mainly because uh, Queensland was a very rural area. And, well, where is it? However, Queensland, then as now, was Australia's least centralised mainland state. Yeah, it's just got so much rural. The provincial cities between have more people area. In these areas, the Country Party was stronger than the Liberal Party. As a result, the Country had historically won seats counterpart and had been senior partner in the coalition until the party's five. In 1963, Nicklin appointed Bjelke Peterson as Minister for Works and Housing. Isn't that interesting? Just in relation to our, touch on business. A portfolio that gave him the opportunity to bestow favors and the loyalty of backbenchers by approving construction of schools, police stations, public housing, electorates. At various times, he also served as acting minister, and this gets a bit crazy. Acting minister for education, police, Aboriginal and Island affairs, which wait till you find out he's not a fan of them. Uh, Local government and conservation and labor and industry. He done a lot. He would serve in cabinet without interruption until his retirement in 1987. Only Thomas played for the fifth, sixth, fourth, who served in the South Australian cabinet without interruption from 1938 to 65. Jesus! Served longer as a federal or state cabinet minister. Premiership. All right, this is the good stuff. This is where we really get into it. Nicklin retired in January 1968 and was succeeded as Premier County, I keep saying county, and Country Party leader by Jack Pizzey. Bjelke Peterson was elected unopposed as Deputy Country Party leader. On 31st July 1968, after just 7 months in office, Pizzey suffered a heart attack and died. Go. Deputy Premier and Liberal leader Gordon Chalk, was sworn in as the caretaker premier until the till the Country Party could elect a new leader, with Bjelke Peterson as deputy premier. The Country Party had 27 seats in Parliament. Liberals had 20. Nonetheless, there was some dispute over whether the Liberals should take senior status, which would have made Chalk, Chalk premier in his own right. Matters were brought to a head when Bjelke Peterson, elected Country Party leader within days of Pizzy's death, threatened to pull the Country Party out of the coalition unless he became premier. Now, doesn't that remind someone? After 7 days, Chalk accepted the inevitable, and Bjelke Peterson was sworn in as premier on 8th August 1968. He remained police minister. I don't know if that's like a normal thing or not, but it's probably not a good idea to have the premier also be the police minister. First ministry and conflict of interest. Within months of becoming premier, Jesus, Ilka Peterson encountered his first controversy over allegations of conflict of interest. In April 1959, while still a backbencher, he had paid. Wait, he was a backbencher? How? Oh, we're going back a bit, are we? Ah, okay. While still a backbencher, he had paid £2 for an authority to prospect, giving him the right to search for oil over 150,000 square kilometres near Her- Hughenden in far north Queensland. The next month, he incorporated a company, Basin Oil Co. Pty Ltd., of which he was sole director and shareholder, and the same day entered an agreement to sell 51% of the company's shares to an American company for £12,000. The following day, he sought the consent of Mines Minister Ernie Evans to transfer the oil search authority to Artisan for $2. The consent was given a week later. When the Taxation Commissioner ruled that the £12,650 windfall from the $2 authority was a taxable profit. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, wait. Oh, was a taxable profit. Sorry. Bjelke Peterson appealed, eventually taking the matter to the High Court. The appeal was dismissed, with Justice Taylor ruling that Bjelke Peterson's 6 million% gain from the £2 authority arose from a profit-making undertaking. Now, he could have been like kneecapped from there. You know, that could have been the end. But don't worry, our boy here, our boy, he had, God had plans for him. He had plans, you see. In 1962, Artisan transferred its authority to prospect to a new company, Exoil NL, for £190,000, and Bjelke Peterson in turn bought 1 million shares in Exoil. On the 1st September 1968, 3 weeks after becoming premier, Bjelke Peterson's government gave two companies, Exoil NL and Transoil. Trans? Oil can be trans? Damn. NL. In both. What is the NL? In both of which he was a major shareholder, 6-year leases to prospect for oil on the Great Barrier Reef north of Cooktown. Opposition leader Jack Houston revealed that the Premier's financial involvement in the companies at a press conference in March 1969, where he asserted Bjelke Peterson had gained fabulous wealth from the $2 prospecting authority, which had now mushroomed into Exoil shares worth 720,000 Australian dollars. Bjelke Peterson said he had done nothing wrong, but resigned his directorship of Artisan in favor of his wife. Oh, well, you know, that really fixes a lot. So, Country Liberal coalition has returned to power at the was returned to power at the 1969 Queensland election with the state system of electoral malapportionment, delivering the country's party 26 seats, a third of the parliament's 78 seats, from 21.1% of the primary vote. The Liberals taking 19 seats, 3.7% of the vote, and the Labor Party's 45.1% share of the vote, leaving it with 31. Insane. That meant that they had always just a bit enough to, as long as they stayed in coalition with the Liberals, meant that they just had enough to always beat the Labor Party. Further controversy followed. Oh, really? In June 1970, oh man, so much. June 1970, it was revealed that a number of Queensland government and senior public servants, as well as Florence Bjelke Peterson, had bought shares in the public float of Comalco, a mining company that had direct dealings with government and ministers. The shares finished their first day of trading at double the price the ministers had paid. This is nothing in comparison to what we have now. Like people are making money with like the £2 to £12,000 thing. Like that checks out. What was it? It was 6 million% gain. Sure, why not? Let's go for it. Jelke Peterson again rejected claims of a conflict of interest, but the country party state branch changed its policy to forbid the acceptance of preferential share offers by ministers or members of parliament. In October, the country party lost a by-election in the Gold Coast seat of Albert, prompting several nervous MPs to make plans to oust Bjelke Peterson and replace him with Deputy Leader Ron Cam. Oh, moment of faith here. Having a moment. The fork. We've met the fork in the road. Stay with Bjelke Peterson, or do we get rid of him? Bjelke Peterson spent the night and the next morning calling MPs to bolster support, surviving a party room vote by a margin of one, after producing a proxy vote of an MP who was overseas and uncontactable. Plans by dissident country party members to support a Labour vote of no confidence or the legislature were quashed after the intervention of party president Robert Sparks, who warned anyone who voted against Bjelke Peterson would lose country party pre-selection at the next state election. They did a lot of strong arming. All right, this is where it gets 1971 state of emergency. Bjelke Peterson seized on the controversial visit of the Springboks, the South African rugby team. That was the whole time when they were protested against a lot because of apartheid. Apartheid says he consolidated his position as leader with a display of force. Springboks matches in southern states had already been disrupted by anti-apartheid demonstrations, and a match in Britain was scheduled. The date of two the date of two by-elections. On 14 July, Jelke Peterson declared a month-long state of emergency covering the entire state, giving the government unlimited power to quell what the government said a climax of violent demonstrations. Doesn't that sound? 600 police were transferred to Brisbane from elsewhere in the states. In the week before the match, 40 trade unions staged a 24-hour strike, protesting against the proclamation. A crowd of demonstrators also mounted a peaceful protest outside the Springboks Wickham Terrace motel. Damn, I know where that is. And were chased on foot by police moments after being ordered to retreat. Yeah, moments after. Doesn't that sound familiar? With many police attacking the crowd with batons, boots, and fists. It was one of a series of violent attacks by police on demonstrators during the Springboks visit to Queensland. The football game was played to a crowd of 7,000 behind a high barbed wire fence without incident. I don't know if 7,000, like, is that a lot for back then? That sounds like not that many. State of emergency, which gave the government the appearance of being strong-willed and decisive, helped steer the government to victory in both by-elections held on match day. Yep. Police Special Branch member Don Lane was one of those elected, becoming a political ally of the Premier. And for those who don't know, Police Special Branch was basically Bjelke Peterson's personal secret police. Bjelke Peterson praised police for their restraint. Doesn't that doesn't that ring true? That's just, I know what that's like, hey? Oh, I'm so glad they were really restraint. Hmm. Restraint was what I was thinking too. And rewarded the police union for its support with an extra week's leave for every officer in the state. He described the tension over the Springboks tour as great as great fun, a game of chess in the political arena. The crisis, he said, put me on the map. This is what I mean. Like, this is what I mean by he was the Trump before Trumps. This guy was so aggrandizing. He just loved like going, yeah, that thing, that was fun. Also, it put me on the map, bro. Yeah, don't worry about the fact that we probably broke a multitude of people's bodies, but it was a good game of chess. The following May, 6 months before the Labour Party's landslide victory at the 1972 Australian federal election under Gough Whitlam, the country Liberal coalition gained another comprehensive win at the 1972 Queensland state election. Bjelke Peterson's party took 26 seats with 20% of the vote. The Liberals took 21 seats with 22.2% vote. Oh, that doesn't seem right to me. And Labor got 33 seats from 46.7% of the vote. Fucking hell. It was the first state election to be following a 1971 electoral redistribution that added 4 seats to the parliament, created four electoral zones with a weightage towards rural seats, with the result that while Brisbane electorates averaged about 22,000 voters, some rural seats such as Gregory and Balloon had fewer than 7,000. That's insane. Why? The 1970s. From 1971, under the guidance of newly hired press secretary Alan Callahan, who, yeah, a former ABC political journalist, Bjelke Peterson developed a high level of sophistication in dealing with news media. He held daily media conferences where he joked that he fed the chooks. What I mean, established direct telex links to newsrooms where he could feed professionally written media releases and became adept at distributing press releases on deadline. Adept at distributing press releases on deadline, so journalists had very little chance to research news topics, news items. The Premier's public profile rose rapidly with the resulting media coverage. Bjelke Peterson began regular media and parliamentary attacks on the Whitlam Labor government, vowing to have it defeated, and he and Whitlam exchanged frequent verbal barbs, culminating in the Prime Minister's 1975 description of the Queensland Premier as a Bible bashing bastard, paranoid, a bigot, and fanatical. See, this is what we need again. This is why Gough Whitlam was so based, you know? He was willing to just say it as it is. We need that shit back. Like, if you were to call Pauline Hanson this, you would get so much hate now. You would be told that, like, that was racist. You'd get banned for racism. What the hell? Story time. Got through most of high school before seeing one friend's bedroom. She was quiet and reserved before seeing. Oh, okay, as in like you're in year 12 or whatever. Oh, well, yeah. And then in year 12, we had post-formal brekkie hosted by her. On the wall of her room, a big poster of portrait of Joe. Look, that is equivalent to. That is an equivalent to. That's nothing compared to what you get now with the Trumpers, you know, like they really will go crazy with all their merchandise. But that's what I'm saying. He is the OG. Bjelke Peterson is the OG. We Australians, we do these things first. That's because our brains are cooked from the heat. But besides that, look, maybe white people weren't supposed to be. You know, evidently, it turns us fucking crazy. Where were we? Bible bashing bastard, paranoid, and a bigot and fanatical. I love that. The pair clashed over federal plans to halt the sale of Queensland coal to Japan, take over the administration of Aboriginal affairs. I wonder why he would have taken issue with that. Remove outback petrol subsidies and move the Australian border in the Torres Strait southwards to a point midway between Queensland and Papua New Guinea. Basically, Belka Peterson was a bit of an expansionist. Well, maybe not so much an expansionist, but he definitely didn't want to relinquish any territories. Bjelke Peterson, like he was basically trying to create his own like state. I mean, obviously it was the Queensland state, but you know what I mean, like his own country, his own empire. Bjelke Peterson also vehemently opposed the Whitlam's Whitlam government's proposal, Medicare, a publicly funded universal healthcare system. I have to describe that. It's not as know what that is. The battles helped to consolidate Bjelke Peterson's power as he used the media to emphasize a distinctive Queensland identity he alleged was under threat from the socialist federal government. The only real difference between Trump and Bjelke Peterson, when you really get down to it, when you really boil it down, is just Bjelke Peterson was a politician. You know, like that's what he did. He started when he was in his 30s. You know, like so. Fuck off, so, you know, he committed to the bit for long enough. Trump didn't give a fuck about trying to do like early start by going into state politics and then move into being the president. No, he's too good for that, you know. But I think it's an admirable. The Queensland government bought a single engine aircraft for the Premier's use in November 1971, upgrading it to a twin engine aircraft in 1975 and an even bigger model in 1975. Then 73 and then 75. So, all right, now we got the plane. Bjelke Peterson, a licensed pilot, used it often to visit far-flung parts of the state to campaign and boost public profile. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not that difficult when there's 7,000 people per each area, like per each seat. You only have to meet so many of them, and they'll just go talk to each other. In April 1974, in a bid to broaden its appeal beyond rural voters, the Country Party changed its to the National Party. Can you bugger off? The Gare Affair. In 1974, Bjelke Peterson outmaneuvered Whitlam after the Prime Minister offered Democratic Labour Party Senator Vince Gare, a bitter opponent of the government, the position of ambassador to Ireland as a way of creating an extra vacant Senate seat in Queensland. Whitlam, who lacked a majority in the Senate, hoped Gare's seat would be won by his Labour Party, but when the arrangement was disclosed by newspapers before Gare had resigned from the Senate, the opposition conspired to keep Gare away from the Senate president to whom Gare had not yet given his resignation. By the way, we're talking about a time where that's all it took. Like, you literally just had to try and ensure that they didn't get to see one another, as opposed to, like, you know, they could always just send an email. And issued his vote and ensured he voted in a Senate debate late that night to avoid any move to backdate the resignation. 5:15, the Queensland Cabinet met to pass a flying minute and advised the Governor, Sir Colin Hanna, to issue writs for 5 rather than 6 vacancies, denying Labor the chance of gaining Gare's Senate spot. The intention was to have Gare's seat declared a casual vacancy, allowing Bjelke Peterson to fill the vacancy until the next election. Which, oh, well, because it was Queensland. Was he Queensland? It was Queensland. Yeah. Oh, he was still a premier. Oh, so he eventually did come in. Anyway, Labour argued that Gare's appointment and hence his departure from the Senate was effective from no later than when the Irish government accepted his appointment in March. This was a matter of protracted debate in the Senate over many days and was never resolved, but it was rendered irrelevant when Whitlam called a double dissolution of both houses in an election gamble he only narrowly won. Which was probably not a good idea. I feel like this is the thing that because I feel like it's safe to call him a leftist. Um, this is the mistake I think a lot of lefty politicians made back then. It's like, or like not mistake that they made, but the thing that always happened was no one ever like just let them do the 1974 state election. In October 1974, Bjelke Peterson called an early election, setting the 1974 Queensland election for 7th December, declaring it would be fought on the alien and stagnating centralist, socialist, communist inspired policies of the federal Labor government. Who does this remind you of? Dude, he was anti woke before it was cool. The premier visited 70 towns and cities in the 5-week campaign and attracted record crowds to public meetings. He did rallies. The result was a spectacular rout, I don't know how you'd say that word, for the Labour Party, which was left with just 11 of the legislature's 82 seats after a 16.5% swing to the coalition, leading observers to call Labour's caucus a cricket team. That's funny. The only seat Labour retained north of Rockhampton was Cairns, by fewer than 200. Oh, by fewer. The National Party, contesting its first state election under the name and fielding candidates in 8 seats, lifted its vote from 19.7% to 8%, creating a threat for the Liberal Party. It also picked up a number of city seats, including its first in Brisbane, eastern suburbs seat of Wynnum. Wait, which one? Oh, so it eventually entered, but named for the suburb of. Like, where? I'm just trying to figure out where we talk. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know where we're talking. The Nationals even managed to oust Labor leader Perk Tucker in his own seat. That's admittedly a pretty big. Um, the Australian newspaper named Bjelke Peterson, whom it described as the undistinguished Queensland Premier, Australian of the Year, citing. Wait, who it described as the undistinguished Australian of the Year, citing the singular impact he has exerted on national political life. Now, to be fair, as the undistinguished. I was going to say that doesn't necessarily mean it's a kind statement. Role in the Whitlam dismissal. That's right. He was partly involved in that. R out. Route. So it is route. Oh, at least I know that now. Feel like I'm going to burp in a moment. 1975, Bjelke Peterson played what turned out to be a key role in the political crisis that brought down the Whitlam government. So, yeah, when Queensland Labor Senator Bertie Milliner died suddenly in June 1975, geez, man, I'm not saying they were behind the deaths, but these people were dying left and right, and it seemed rather convenient. Bjelke Peterson requested from the Labour Party a short list of 3 nominees, from which he would pick one to replace Milliner. The ALP refused to supply such a list, instead nominating Mal Colston, an unsuccessful Labour candidate in the 1970 election, whom he rejected. On 3 September, Bjelke Peterson selected political novice Albert Field, a longtime ALP member who was critical of the Whitlam Party. I wonder why he was brought in. Field's appointment was the subject of a High Court challenge, and he was on leave from October 1975. During this period, the coalition led by Malcolm Fraser declined to allot a pair to balance Field's absence. This gave the coalition control over the Senate. There was a lot of colluding going on. Fraser used that control to obstruct passage of the supply bills. Through Parliament, denying Whitlam's by now unpopular government the legal capacity to appropriate funds for government business and leading to his dismissal as Prime Minister. During the tumultuous election campaign precipitated by Whitlam's dismissal by the Governor-General John Kerr, Bjelke Peterson alleged that Queensland police investigations had uncovered damaging documentation in relation to the loans affair. This documentation was never made public and the allegations remain unsubstantiated. Oof. So now we've got the whole, I've got the documents. I'm just never going to show you them. Good. Can read a few that one. Taxation reform. Queensland was renowned for being the lowest tax state in Australia for much of Bjelke Peterson's tenure. Surprised by that. Overheated objections by Treasurer Gordon Chalk. Bjelke Peterson in 1977 announced the removal of state death duty, a move that cost his state 30 revenue. So many New South Wales and Victorian residents sought to establish their permanent address in Queensland as a result, boosting state coffers stamp duty from property transactions. That other states followed suit with and also abolished the tax. To help compensate for lost revenue, the government introduced football pool, betting pool based on predicting the outcome of association. 4 years later, the government granted a casino license on the Gold Coast, although this too was mired in allegations of corruption and favoritism. Of course, of course, of course, of course, of course, of course. Why wouldn't it? Of course. Anything that we do here is because of corruption. Why would we do anything else? Is there corruption involved? I'm in. Is there not corruption involved? What do you want? Don't bother me with boring bit. Restriction of civil liberties and alleged authoritarian. Give me a moment. It's gonna take one sec. Oh God, is my mic cutting out? Far out. Low. One, two. Is it working more consistently now? Just gonna check on something. A bit. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, where are we? Where are we? All right, restriction of civil liberties and alleged authoritarian alleged. Just alleged. You know? It's just the alleging. Issues of police powers and civil liberties first raised at the time of the night. Yeah. Resurfaced in July 1976 with a major street demonstration in which more than 1,000 university students marched towards the Brisbane city centre to demand better allowances from the federal government. Police stopped the march in Coronation Drive. Wait, oh yeah. And television cameras captured an incident during the confrontation in which a police inspector struck a 20-year-old female protester over the head with his baton, injuring her. When police commissioner, to think that that made a difference back then, you know, like that footage probably, and then when it was aired, might have actually spun a lot of people on what they thought. Not enough necessarily, obviously, but like it's just kind of crazy to think that one video might have been enough to have started like having people turn heads. But nowadays they just see that and it's like, oh yeah, well that's what you get, right? That's just a given. When Police Commissioner Ray Whitred announced he would hold an inquiry, a move supported by Police Minister Max Hodges, Bjelke Peterson declared there would be no inquiry. Ah well. He told reporters he was tired of radical groups believing they could take over the streets. Oh, that doesn't sound familiar. Police officers passed a motion at a meeting commending the Premier for his distinct stand against groups acting outside the law and censured Whitford. Oh well. A week later, relieved Hodges of his police portfolio. Oh, oh no. Secure in the knowledge that they had the Premier's backing, police officers continued to act provocatively, most notably in a military-style raid on a hippie commune. I wish there was more like movies, TV shows, games surrounding this. Not this specifically, but we really were like totally like cut snakes. Like we were fucking insane back then. It was a lawless wasteland. Police officers on a hippie commune at Cedar Bay in far north Queensland late the following month. The police, who had been looking for marijuana, set fire to the residents' houses and destroyed their property. Just lit it ablaze. Fucking. I mean, I wonder how high they got from from like as contact high. Bjelke Peterson rejected calls for an inquiry into the raid, declaring the government believe the police would believe the police and claiming the public clamor was all part of an orchestrated campaign to legalize marijuana and denigrate the police. Yeah. Now, this is the funny shit. In defiance of the Premier, Wichard went ahead with an inquiry anyway, and on 16 November ordered summons be issued against 4 police officers on more than 25 charges, including arson. He chose the same day to announce that he was quitting his post. Terrible decision. Whitred claimed his resignation marked a victory for the forces of corruption. Wait, what? He chose the same. Okay, but said he had decided to quit rather than tolerate further political interference by the Premier and new political minister, Tom Newbury. And this is the problem that I'm hoping we are reaching a stage where people are realizing you leaving just means there's an empty spot, someone else to replace who will be even more compliant, be more of a puppet, more of a stooge. Like, if anything, Whitrud, Whit, Whitrud, Whitrud, um, might have at least been able to achieve some semblance of fucking justice for people if he stayed. I mean, I don't. There's so much context that we're obviously leaving out of things like this, but still. Whitred said Queensland showed signs of becoming a police state, and he compared the growing political interference in law with the rise of the German Nazi state. Oh no! Whitred was replaced by Assistant Commissioner Terry Lewis. Oh yeah, Terry Lewis. He was a real fucking scumbag when it came to the corruption. Despite Whitred's warning to the police minister that he was corrupt. Yeah, nah, why not? Just go for it. Wait, who was it that then got the? Who was now the police commissioner? Put it by believed. Doesn't really state. Oh no, yep, Tom Newbury. Okay, yep. In 1977, Bjelke Peterson announced that the day of street marches is over. Well, there you go, folks. This was a time when just street marches, no more, all over. Warning protesters, don't bother applying for a march permit, you won't get one, that's government policy now. Liberal parliamentarians crossed the floor defending the right of association assembly. For once, they had a backbone. One Liberal MP, Colin Lamont, told a meeting at the University of Queensland that the Premier was engineering confrontation for electoral purposes and was confronted 2 hours later by an angry Bjelke Peterson who said he was aware of the comments. That's insane. That's insane. 2 hours later? Like, how quickly did it make its way up to him? If not, he was just already listening. Lamont later said he learned the special branch had been keeping files on liberal rebels liberal rebels and reporting not to their commissioner but direct yeah because special branch yeah that was his secret police, but directly to the premier commenting the police state had arrived. When after two ugly street battles between police and right to march protesters, it's kind of crazy to think that it literally came down to that. Like, it was literally now the protest is the right to march, the right to protest. The Uniting Church Synod called on the government to change the march law. Bjelke Peterson accused the clergy of supporting communists. Ah! His attack sparked a joint political statement by four other major religious denominations, which was shrugged off by the premier. What are you doing? You're supporting communists, you fucking clergyman. What are you doing? Are you commie clergy? Quitting is copping out. Yeah, exactly. Quitting is copping out. 100%. Like, I can imagine there can be our scenarios that are things, especially considering we have hindsight. I don't think it's that great comparison now because it's like, bro, you could have for one stopped that thing the day of street marches is over. Maybe not. I don't know. I just love that. Accuse the clergy of support. Like, this is back in the day, and like we're having this shit happening again now. It's like, nah, bro. Peterson was the OG. He was the OG JBP. government's increasingly hardline approach to civil liberties, as in none, having none, just what civil liberties, prompted Queensland National Party President Robert Sparks to warn the party that it was a conservative fascist image. I always love this, where they don't realize how close they are to fascism. Like, surely the fact that you're steps away makes you start to, oh, maybe we're just wrong. Maybe we are the bad guys. Bad guy. Told a party conference studiously avoid any statements or actions which suggest an extreme right-wing posture. Bjelke Peterson ignored the advice. Yeah. He condemned the use of Australian foreign aid to prop up communist regimes, urged Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser to stop criticising the governments of South Africa and Rhodesia. And Rhodesia. Rhodesia. Yeah, man. What are you doing cutting out against sad face? Oh, what? If you're not a Catholic, you're a hippie. You're not Catholic, you're a hippie. That's funny. I mean, at least it's only cutting out, I guess, because before it was just super distorted, apparently. That was really annoying. Just want to quickly see. Sort of cut it off a little bit, but whatever. Rhodesia, Rhodesia, Rhodesia. There's a whole thing about Rhodesia that's like really funny. British Dominion of Southern Rhodesia following a unilateral declaration of independence issued by the ruling. Throughout this 14, yeah, because it was literally started by a guy called Rhodes, wasn't it? Rhodesia faced internal conflict and unrest following the Lancaster House Agreement in 1979. The territory returned to British political control and then subsequently gained internationally recognized independence of Zimbabwe. Um, where is history? And look, British not developed as an African territory, but rather as a unique state that reflected its multiracial character. This situation was permanent. Two, faced with South Africa as a fifth presidency or accept nearly full internal autonomy, the electorate cast its vote against South African integration. Interesting. View of the outcome. Referendum, the territory was annexed by the United Kingdom. Shortly after annexation, over it affecting natives and dominated foreign policy. I remember there was a whole thing that I once read about like even the British eventually, like it was so fucked that even the British were like, yeah, never mind, we don't respect, we don't acknowledge, we don't endorse. As a state, oh, wasn't this where I just was? That was Rhodesia's time as a state unrecognized by the, yeah, here we go. By the international community following the predominantly white minority government's unilateral declaration of independence headed by Prime Minister Ian Smith, the Rhodesian Front remained in government when the country was remained in government. Oh yeah, when it was after several unsuccessful announced the declaration. way to grant independence, it sought to retain Rhodesia's link with the British monarchy by keeping Queen Elizabeth as nominal head of state, but she refused to accept the title of Queen of Rhodesia, still internationally recognized as the only legal authority in Rhodesia, refused to recognize Smith's authority. Smith responded by ignoring Salisbury and appointing the deputy prime minister. Britain did not respond to the UDI with force. Instead, it attempted using economic sanctions. Yeah, so literally, they were like, even this, like, look, man, we're pretty okay with racism and colonialism and fucking over the black man. But this is a step too far for us. This is a bit crazy. Oh, that would be really interesting to read up on. All these different little empires and whatnot. Anyway, unrelated. Unrelated. Where were we? Government's headline. Where is it? Rhodesia, and from 1977 proposed Queensland secede from Australia and establish its own currency. That's right. He condemned the use of foreign aid to prop up communist regimes, urged Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser to stop criticizing the governments of South Africa and Rhodesia. Yeah, like stop criticizing them. What are you doing, man? And from 1977 proposed Queensland secede from Australia and establish its own currency. Queensland really is the Texas of Australia. We really are. Oh man. It's so fucking dumb. He also accused political opponents of being covert communists bent on chaos, observing, I have always found you can campaign on anything you like, but nothing is more effective than communism. If he's a Labour man, he's a socialist and a very dangerous man. Oh, fuck, that's funny. 3 weeks before the 1977 Queensland election, 400 demonstrators were arrested in what a Melbourne newspaper called Joe's War. Aided by an electoral redistribution that removed 2 Liberal-held seats, the Nationals won 35 out of 82 seats, compared with 24 for the Liberals and 23 for a resurgent Labor Party. It was the first time in Queensland political history the Nationals had outpolled the Liberals. Let's see. Outpolled? What do you mean by outpolled? Oh, maybe in like preference. Uh, Bjelke Peterson used the party's strength to move key cabinet posts that had long held by the Liberals into the hands of National Party ministers. In October 1978, thousands of demonstrators again attempted to defy anti-march laws with a protest march in Albert Street, Brisbane, which was again repulsed by police line police lined 5 deep. In a Brisbane by-election a month later, National Party support slumped to just 10%, half of what party strategists had expected. A month later. But by the end of 1978, both the state Liberal Party and the Labor Party had new parliamentary leaders, the fourth Labor opposition leader during Bjelke Peterson's reign, and the third Liberal leader, which is rather like, goddamn. Disintegration of the state coalition, seventh ministry. Here we go. Florence Bjelke Peterson was elected to the Senate. I wonder how that happened. In October 1980 as a National Party member, and 6 weeks later, Joe was successful for a fifth time as Premier at the 1980 Queensland election. See, this is the thing. People say, like, oh, the 80s were really bad in Queensland because Joe Bjelke Peterson. It wasn't just the 80s, those are the 70s and the 60s. With the Nationals converting a 27, and notice how all of the over-the-top anti-civil liberties and authoritarianism and whatnot, it has all been as a means of keeping a hold on power. Mic check, all good. Thank God. Um, but yeah, notice how like they they only really did the not like the only like clearly he just liked seeing communists getting the shit beaten out of them, but also there was a point to it. There was a purpose. 6 weeks later, Joe was successful for a fifth time, while the Nationals converting a 27.9% primary vote, their highest ever, into 35 Parliament's 82 seats, or 43% of seats. Jesus, that's there you go. It also recorded a record 13-seat lead over their coalition partners, the Liberals, who had campaigned by offering Queenslanders an alternative style of moderate government. A good, yeah, because at that point, that's what everyone was looking for in particular. The Nationals picked up all four Gold Coast seats and all those on the Sunshine Coast. Once again, the Premier took advantage of all of his party's dominance over the Liberals in cabinet, this time demanding that the seven Liberal ministers sign a coalition agreement in which they promised unquestioned allegiance to cabinet decisions. Like, what the fuck? The move turned the Nationals' 35 votes to a guaranteed majority of 42. Yeah. In the House, effectively neutralizing any potential opposition by the 15 Liberal backbenchers. Ah, because how many did they get? They got come on, where is it? 35. What did the Liberals get? Record 13 lead over their coalition partners, so they would have had 22, and then they gained the move turned 35 so they gained 7 of the 22. So that, yeah, okay, so 15. Effectively neutralizing any opposition by the 15. Yeah, yeah, okay, I see now. Because what, like, if they, I guess it's on the basis that they were expecting that they would never back the Labour Party. Because, like, if I, wait, fuck, I'm doing the maths here. So 42. 15, that's 57, and then it's 82 seats, 57, 82, so that's 25. Ah, yeah, 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 wow. Yeah, basically guaranteed political success because a pumpkin scone recipe was that good. I have heard that Joh Bjelke Peterson, Florence Bjelke Peterson made a good pumpkin scone, so I'll give her credit on that. That is, you know, understandable. I don't. I respect the woman. Respect all women. Bjelke Peterson began making opponents, including big appointments. I feel like I've read so much now that like I'm merging words together. Bjelke Peterson began making appointments, including judges and the chairmanship of the Totalisator. What the hell? Total. The tab. Okay. The TAB. Got it. Got it. Began making appointments, including judges and the chairmanship of the tab that had traditionally been the domain of Liberal ministers. And accusations arose of political interference and conflicts of interest as mining contracts, casino licenses, and the rights to build shopping complexes were awarded to business figures with National Party links. I don't know what you're talking about. What I don't understand how that could be shifty and dodgy at all. Literally, I remember my mother and my father telling me stories of how like they would they were in Brisbane at the time of Bjelke Peterson, and they would tell me stories, obviously long past then now. They would tell me stories of how like they'd be on their way to work kind of thing, walking down the street or whatever, and they're almost at work, and there would be like a particular what would they call them, like heritage listed building or whatever, like an old house, something that was from around like 100 years prior, kind of thing. And it would be there one day, and then the next, it was just gone, just cleared. And then like a month or two later, okay, maybe I'm pushing it a bit there, but like then it would be like a full construction site of building like a whole new tower. Accusations of political interference also arose when police released without charge TAB chairman Sir Edward Lyons, a National Party trustee and close friend. Wait, released without charge. When police released without charge. After a breathalyzer test showed he was driving with more than double the legal blood alcohol limit. Damn, bro. Relations with the Liberal Party continued to deteriorate. By August 1983, after 26 years of coalition, they had reached their nadir. Have some more of my burg. Yeah, it was. Yeah, jobs for the boys. 100%. Where was it? By the way, I like that this was the point that they had reached their nadir, as if like all of the shit up till now shouldn't have been enough for the Liberal Party to go, yeah, okay, this problem. But Bjelke Peterson was angered by a Liberal Party bid to establish a public accounts committee to examine government expenditure. You can't do that. How dare you? What do you mean? You want to look at how we're spending the money that the taxpayers give us? How dare you? That's just not allowed. Shortly afterward, Liberal leader Lou Edwards was ousted in a party room coup by Terry White. Hang on. Is this Terry White the what the fuck? Oh, huh. Terry White, the guy that the Terry White Kmart. Oh, no, we did it afterward. Yeah, right. That's weird. It's crazy to think that he was principled on one thing. Otherwise, I'm not that principled guy. Who had long advocated a greater role for the Liberals in the coalition. Well, what did you think you were going to do? What did you think you were going to do? Bjelke Peterson thinks he could do everything. What are you doing? Bjelke Peterson refused to give Edwards' old post of deputy premier to White, choosing instead to adjourn Parliament, which had sat for just 15 days that year, declined to say when it would sit again, and insisted he could govern alone without the need of a coalition. Ah, yeah, why not? Commenting, the government of Queensland is in very good hands. Very, very good hands. Labour leader Tom Burns said the closure of Parliament showed that no rules exist in the state of Queen. In a fortnight of political crisis, Bjelke Peterson defied an ultimatum by Liberal parliamentarians to accept their leader in cabinet, prompting White to tear up the coalition agreement and lead the Liberals to the crossbench. Watching with satisfaction as the Liberal Party engaged in vitriolic infighting. Of course they did. Bjelke Peterson called an election for the 20 for an election for the 22nd October, claiming, I really believe we can govern Queensland in our own right. He's like, alrighty then, let's just take it all. They're just gonna swallow up fucking the Liberals. Campaign coincided with the launch of an official Bjelke Peterson biography, Jigsaw, which lauded him as a statesman extraordinaire and protectorate of Queensland and her people. Hmm, interesting. Again, haven't heard this one before. Further rubbing salt in the wounds of coalition partners, his campaign was boosted by the support of prominent Liberals from other states, including Tasmanian Premier Robin Gray, former Victorian and New South Wales Premiers Sir Henry Bolt and Tom Lewis. The Nationals also poured significant resources into Brisbane area Liberal seats, seeing a chance to not only win government in right but destroy their former Liberal parties. Why would the Liberal That's really dumb from the Liberals' perspective to have helped alongside this because they're literally actively destroying the party. I don't understand. 3 months before his 73rd birthday. Yeah, you really shouldn't have a guy in once they've hit 73. Bjelke Peterson, it's not a thing against 73-year-olds or 70-year-olds. It's just your time for politics has passed. But it doesn't matter anymore because we now have 80-year-olds in government anyway. uh, or the President of the United States. Bjelke Peterson and his party recorded a resounding victory, attracting 38.9. It's kind of crazy to think he was getting more and more popular. Like, like he was getting more popular. But I guess that kind of shows what happens when have a fascist dictator-esque guy, and he's rather cleverly utilizing all of the legalistic tools to his advantage, as well as the authoritarian police state crackdowns of the primary vote to give them exactly half the parliament's 82 seats, just one short of a majority. The Keith Wright-led Labour Party, with 44% of the vote, won 32 seats, exactly half. So 41. Yeah, that's insane. 38.9% of the primary vote got 41 seats. 44% of the vote got 32 seats. It's literally like they got the opposite. The Liberals were decimated, losing all but 8 of their 21 seats. Peterson openly urged Liberals to cross the floor to the Nationals in hopes of getting an outright majority. Just 3 days later, two Liberals, former ministers Don Lang and Brian Austin, took up Bjelke Peterson's offer and joined the Nationals in return for seats in cabinet. You little bitches. You little cowards. Fascism provides a kind of certainty in a changing world, suddenly. That is true. That is true. And I guess like this wasn't necessarily like fascism like today where it's it's cringe, like it's all the looks maxing, it's like the weird memes and shit that you get online. Like I don't know if Bjelke Peterson would be down for that. I feel like he might actually cringe at that stuff. I feel like he would, I don't know. Not to say that he would be swinging left or anything. I just think he'd just he'd just quit. He'd be like, I'm too old for this shit, man. I get it. I get it. Yeah, he's the white man. But why are you guys such losers? Such loners. Loner losers. Where is it? With Lane and Austin's defections, the National Party was able to form a majority government for the first time at the state level in Australia. In 1984, Bjelke Peterson was created a Knight Commander of the Order of St. George, St. Michael, and St. George. Sure, fuck it. Why not? Yeah, why not? The services to parliamentary democracy. That's so good. Author Evan Whitten suggests the Premier had made the nomination himself. It's literally Trump shit. It's like, uh the window hang on. Yeah, the window dressings have updated, but the foundation remains. There, that is true. Um this is literally like how Trump would maybe he would. There was a time where he would keep calling into radio stations or whatever, and he would claim that he was this guy called Jack Lang or some shit like that. But it was very obviously Donald Trump, and he could not stop praising Donald Trump. It just feels very similar to that. That's so funny. In 1986, Labour Prime Minister Bob Hawke discontinued knighthoods in Australia, and it was largely in response. Oh, that's right, because then fucking Tony Abbott brought it back. In response to Bjelke Peterson's knighthood, when Liberal Prime Minister Tony Abbott brought back knighthoods, and he insisted that politicians would not be eligible, citing uh, Sir Joh as a reason for the ineligibility. I mean, I don't, is that true actually? Have politicians been eligible since? But also, I'd like to think, like, look, within the context of there being knighthoods, which I do think rather silly. It's a bit, it's cute, but it's like we do live in the modern world now. Or just knights riding on horses or shit like that. But I'd like to think that if we're gonna keep them, we wouldn't like there is a more of a reason that Joh Bjelke Peterson shouldn't be eligible for it beyond just him being a politician at the time, or was a politician once. In 1985, Bjelke Peterson unveiled plans for another electoral redistribution to create 7 new seats in 4 zones. 4 in the state's populous southeast, with an average enrollment of 9,000 electors per seat, and 3 in country areas with enrollments as low as Jesus. Hang on. So with an average enrollment of 19,000, as low as 9,000. And how many, sorry? 4 in the states. We got that, and then 3 in the country. Here's the gerrymandering we talked about in this whole thing. The boundaries were to be drawn by electoral commissioners specifically appointed by the government. One of them, Cairns lawyer Sir Thomas Kovacevic, Kovacevic, was a fundraiser for the National Party. Of course, of course. The malapportionment meant that a vote in the state's west was worth 2 in Brisbane and the provincial cities. A University of Queensland associate professor of government described the redistribution as the criminal act ever perpetrated in politics, the most zonal gerrymander in the history of the world, and the most serious action of Bjelke Peterson's career. I mean, obviously America, like, really and the Republicans in particular, not that the Democrats are any better on this actually, have really taken it to a extreme. Um, but yeah, I'm fine with calling it that, the most extreme in all of history and all of the world, you know, like I believe it. We were doing some wacky shit, and hey, we might be getting more of it. Hang on. Send. Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna assume that. It's a wank fest. Ah, so true. True. A Joe for PM campaign was conceived in late 1985, driven largely by a group of Gold Coast property developers. Go back to this one and looks to lift a ban on political donations from developers, property developers, prompting um, Bjelke Peterson as the most effective conservative challenger to Labour Prime Minister Bob, promoting, sorry, as the most effective conservative challenger to Labour Prime Minister Bob Hawke, and at the 1986 Queensland recorded his biggest electoral election, winning 49 of the state's 89 seats with 39.6%. That's like he got more than half? Yeah, he got more than half. His half would have been 80, like 84, 85. So he literally got like four or five more than half, despite only getting 39.6% primary. The LP's 41.3% share of the vote earned it 30 seats. Oh, okay. While the Liberal Party won the remaining 10 seats. In his victory speech, Bjelke Peterson declared the Nationals had prevailed over the three forces who had opposed it. We had the ALP organization with its deceits, deception, and lies. We had the media encouraging and supporting them. Well, you know, checking in again with the way things are done. I'm telling you, it's almost as if Trump learnt from Bjelke Peterson. And we had the Liberal Party. Our assault on Canberra begins now. I'm interested by the fact that he doesn't really name why Liberal Party bad would opposed it. Um, it was the seventh and final electoral victory of the Bjelke Peterson era. In January 1987, the Premier handed control of the state to Deputy Premier Bill Gunn and announced he would seek election to the House of Representatives, formally embarking on it Joh for Canberra push. By early 1987, the campaign, with its promise of a 25% flat tax, was attracting the support of a 20% voters in opinion polls. I'm guessing that would have been a reduction flat tax. All right. And then we have the police inquiry, downfall, and resignation. Here we go. Almost done, folks. This has taken me This bit has taken me 2 hours and 40 minutes so far. It's been worth it. In late 1986, two journalists, the ABC's Chris Masters, that like the OG, isn't that like the goat picture of it? That's not who I think. Yeah, he's like one of the goats, right? Exposed. Yeah, I'm pretty. Isn't maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. Who was the guy that was like the Four Corners guy? Gary O'Brien is who I'm thinking of. Gary O'Brien. Whoops, not exactly who, who not exactly the same guy. Actually, okay, where were we now? The ABC's Chris Masters and the Courier Mail's Bill Dickey independently began investigating the extent of police and political corruption, its links to the National Party state government. Dickey's report. Oh, really? Who would have thunk? Dickey's reports alleging the apparent immunity from prosecution by a group of illegal brothel operators began appearing in a 1987. Masters' explosive Four Corners investigative report on police corruption entitled "The Moonlight State" aired on. Then, within a week, acting Premier Gunn decided to initiate a wide-ranging commission inquiry into police corruption despite opposition from Bjelke Peterson. Gunn selected former federal court judge Tony Fitzgerald as its head. By late June, the terms of inquiry of what became known as the Fitzgerald Inquiry uh, had been widened from members of the force to include any other persons with whom police might have been engaged in misconduct. Yeah, might have been engaged in misconduct since 1977. Which really, when you think about it, didn't go far enough, but whatever. Get what you can. On 19, May 27, 1987, Prime Minister Hawke called a federal election for 11 July. Wait, who's the green here? Ah, National. Oh my God, it was fucking John Howard. Look, it's young John Howard. Catching. Okay, so called for an federal election had earlier, not and had a federal seat. June, he abandoned his ambitions to be his position. The announcement came too late for the. I mean, oh my God, could you actually? Probably would still be. Kerry took the mantle after Chris. Ah, yes, Chris Mouse. I knew that I remembered him. I definitely recognized his face when I was looking at him too. But yeah, I got him obviously primarily mixed up with Kerry O'Brien there, but they both. I know that they were both fucking top G's of their time. So here we are. On 3 June, he abandoned. Blah, 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 blah. The announcement came too late for the non-Labour forces, as Bjelke Peterson had pressured the federal pull out of the coalition. Wait, what? Yeah, the announcement came too late for the non-Labour forces, as Bjelke Peterson had pressured the federal pull out of the coalition due to a number of three-cornered contests. Labour won a sweeping victory. Fitzgerald began his formal hearings on 27 July 1987, and a month later, the first bombshell dropped as Sergeant Harry Burgess, accused of accepting $2,000 in bribes since 1980, located senior officers Jack Herbert, Noel Dwyer, Graham Parker, and Commissioner Terry Lewis in complex graft schemes. Other allegations quickly followed, and on 21 September, Police Minister Gunn ordered, of course, his Gunn, ordered Lewis, knighted in 1986, and Bill Peterson best, and now accused of having taken 663,000 in bribes. Oh my God! To stand down. The ground had begun to shift out from under Bjelke Peterson's feet, even before the hearings. First allegations of corruption prompted Labour opposition asked the governor, Sir Walter Campbell, to use his reserve power to sack Bjelke Peterson. The position deteriorated rapidly. Ministers were openly opposing him in cabinet meetings, which had been almost unthinkable in his tenure. Oh no, it's coming to a head. Hey, it always is. All good things must come to an end. Throughout 1986, Bjelke Peterson had pushed for approval of construction of the world's tallest skyscraper. Of course, of course. Brisbane CBD, which had been announced in May, the project, which had not been approved by City Council, enraged his backbenchers during a party meeting. MP Juan, name is that for you just don't have pictures of MP Juan Fraser confronted Bjelke Peterson saying, I know there is a bloody big payoff coming, but a bloody big payoff coming as a result of this. Corrupt old bastard. Stop it. You're a corrupt old bastard. Mike Probs again. Oh no. Ah. Bloody bloody bar. Alright. Where was I? Yeah, just during a party meeting, MP Juan Fraser confronted Bjelke Peterson saying, I know there is a bloody big payoff to you coming as a result of this. You're a corrupt old bastard, I'm not going to cop it. By this time, Sparks had also turned against Bjelke Peterson, was pressuring him to retire on 7th October. Oh my God. The 7th of October? Bjelke Peterson. Can't get it. On 7th of October, Bjelke Peterson announced he would retire from politics on 8th August 1988. Oh my God, it's so close. That's so close to my birthday. As in the day, not the year. I'm not that old. 20th anniversary of his swearing in. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, it might have been that I like put off center or something. 6 weeks later, on 23rd November 1987, Bjelke Peterson visited Campbell and advised him to sack. That's right. That's right. To sack the entire cabinet and appoint a new one with redistributed portfolios. Because who was Campbell? He was Oh yeah, he was the governor. However, under normal circumstances, Campbell would have been bound by convention to act on Bjelke Peterson's advice. However, Campbell persuaded Bjelke Peterson to limit his demand to ask for the resignations of those ministers he wanted removed. Bjelke Peterson then demanded the resignation of 5 of his ministers, including Gun and Health Minister Mike Ahern. All refused, Gunn believing Bjelke Peterson intended to take over the police portfolio and terminate the Fitzgerald inquiry, announced he would challenge for the leadership. Bjelke Peterson persisted regardless and decided to sack 3 ministers, Ahern, Austin, and Peter McKechnie, on the grounds of displaying insufficient loyalty. Trump shit, man. He was Trump before Trump ever trumped. The next day, Bjelke Peterson formally advised. What? Yeah, yeah. The next day, Bjelke Peterson formally advised Campbell to sack Ahern, Austin, and McKechnie and call an early election. However, Ahern, Gunn, and Austin told Campbell that Bjelke Peterson no longer had enough parliamentary support to govern. While Campbell agreed to the ouster of Ahern, Gunn, and Austin, he was reluctant to call fresh elections for a legislature that was only a year old. He thus concluded that the crisis was a political. It's like, come on, man, it's only a year old, man. Really going to put the fucking, really going to put the people through this? They really got to go back out and do an election. Thus concluded that the crisis was a political one in which he should not be involved. He also believed that Bjelke Peterson was no longer acting rationally. After Bjelke Peterson refused numerous requests for a party meeting, the party's management committee called one for the 26th November. At this meeting, a spill motion was carried by a margin of 38 to 9. Bjelke Peterson boycotted the meeting and thus did not nominate for the ensuing leadership vote, which saw Ahern elected as the new leader and Gunn re-elected as deputy. Ahern promptly wrote to Campbell seeking to be commissioned as premier. This normally should have been a pro forma request. I don't know what that actually means. Pro forma. Obviously Latin. Done or produced as a matter of form, as a matter of politeness. So, method of calculating financial results. What? 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 Okay, I'm gonna just assume it means like, you normally just do it given the Nationals' outright majority. However, Bjelke Peterson insisted he was still premier and even sought the support of his old Liberal and Labour foes in order to stay in office. But I thought they were communists. I don't understand. Why do you want help from the communists all of a sudden? However, even with the combined support of the Liberals and Labour, Bjelke Peterson would have needed at least 4 other Nationals to cross the floor. Oh, however, okay, so probably like even if he got them, to cross the floor if he hoped to keep his post. Despite Bjelke Peterson's seemingly tenuous position, Campbell had received legal advice that he could only use his reserve power to sack Bjelke Peterson and appoint Ahern only if Bjelke Peterson tried to stay in office after being defeated in the legislature. So, like what? Like if he lost like a law? Like if a bill didn't succeed? This was per long-standing constitutional practice in Australia, which calls for a First Minister, Prime Minister at the federal level, Premier at the state level, Chief Minister at the territorial level, to stay in office unless he resigns or is defeated in the House. Oh, as in like he's literally loses election, right? I would imagine that's what it means. The result was a situation in which, as the Sydney Morning Herald put it, Queensland had a premier who is not a leader, and the National Party a leader who is not premier. That's pretty true. The crisis continued till 1st December. Hang on, and this was at least around 26th November. So we're talking like basically it's a given, but the paperwork has to be done to legally enact. Oh, okay. So yep. Wait, so then where was it? This normally should have been a pro forma request given the given the outright majority, as in like it's kind of a given, but he just you still have to obviously make it official. Um, it continued till the 1st of December when Bjelke Peterson resigned as Premier and member for Barambah and retired from politics. He declared the policies the policies of the National Party are no longer those on which I went to the people. Therefore, I have no wish to lead the government any longer. It was my intention to take this matter to the floor of state parliament. However, I have no further interest in leading the National Party any further. That is just saying, outside of, how much our English has depreciated over the past many decades because of social media, internet, screens in our faces all the time. That is a very Trumpy kind of response when you think about it. It's literally like, it's not my fault. The policies of the party is just not longer mine. And so I intended to take this matter to the floor of the government. Floor of Parliament, but I guess they don't want me to do that anymore. And you know what? That's all right. I'm not interested in it. They suck. They're losers. They're losers. They just want to keep losing. I'm a winner. I just want to win, but they aren't interested in winning. So I've decided I'm no longer interested in this whole thing. I'm going to go back to my farm and I'm just going to go shoot kangaroos or do whatever you do. I went into a Trump voice for a moment there and then I just ran back out. Jan 6 talk. Yeah. 3 months later, Bjelke Peterson called on voters at the federal by-election in Groom. What a great name. What a name to have for that. Groom. Fuck. 3 months later, Bjelke Peterson called on voters at the federal by-election in Groom to support the Liberal candidate instead of the National contestant. Bjelke Peterson said the Nationals had lost their ways and turned back on traditional Conservative policy. Ah, he literally, he literally, ah, he literally is like, "Fuck you guys! I'm gonna go ruin your party." It's Trump. This is Trump. This is so much Trump shit. He was Trump before Trump ever Trumped. Like, cause even like, I see people sometimes trying to compare like Ronald Reagan to Trump, like, in a lot of ways I do agree, but I feel like even then, Ronald Reagan didn't hold the same kind of, I don't know, loyalty. The loyalty's the same. So, I mean, that one's kind of a bit boring. Bjelke Peterson was called to the Fitzgerald corruption inquiry on the 1st of December 1988, where he said that despite allegations raised in the media and Parliament, he had held no suspicion in the previous decade of what? He had held no suspicion the previous decade of corruption in Queensland. He said a Hong Kong businessman's 1986 donation of 100,000 to an election slush fund delivered in cash at the Premier's Brisbane office was not unusual, and that he did not know the identity of other donors who had left sums of 50,000 and 60,000 in cash at his office on other occasions. It just happens sometimes, that just happens. I don't know what you're talking about. That just happens sometimes. Rhinos, they're all a bunch of rhinos. Exactly. That's exactly what they do. 100%. It's the rhino thing. Or dino, but obviously, Uh, question by barrister Michael Ford. Man, you would have loved to have been Michael Ford that day. Bjelke Peterson, whose citation for his 1984 knighthood noted that he was a strong believer in historic tradition of parliamentary democracy and was also unable to explain the doctrine of separation of powers under the Westminster system. I mean, he was just a farmer growing up. Under Ahern and Russell Cooper, the Nationals were unable to overcome the damage from the revelations about the massive corruption in the Bjelke-Peterson government. At the 1989 state election, Labor swept the Nationals from power in a 24-seat swing at the time, the worst defeat of a sitting government since responsible government was introduced in Queensland. What does that mean? What is the principles of parliament? Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. As a result of the Fitzgerald inquiry, Lewis was tried, convicted, and jailed on corruption charges. He was later stripped of his knighthood and other honours. A number of other officials, including ministers Don Lane and Austin, were also jailed. Another former minister, Russ Hinds, died while awaiting trial. In 1991, Bjelke Peterson faced criminal trial for perjury arising out of the evidence he had given to the Fitzgerald inquiry. An earlier proposed charge of corruption was incorporated into the perjury charge. Bjelke Peterson's former police special branch bodyguard, Sergeant Bob Carter, told the court that in 1986 he had twice been given packages of cash totaling 210,000 at the Premier's office. He was told to take them to a Brisbane City law firm and then watch as the money was deposited into a company bank account. The money had been given over by developer Singswee Lee, and the bank account was in the name of Caldeal, operated by Sir Edward Lyons, a trustee of the National Party. John Huey, a Fitzgerald inquiry investigator, later told Four Corners, I said to Robert Snig, is it like a, no, Snig? Uh, I said to Robert Snig, well, what did Sir Joh say to you when you gave him this large sum of money? And he said, all he said was, thank you, thank you, thank you. Of course. The jury did not agree on a verdict. In 1992, it was revealed that the jury foreman, Luke whatever, was a member of the Young Nationals and was identified with the Friends of Joh movement. A special prosecutor announced in 1992 that there will be no retrial because Bjelke Peterson, then aged 81, was too old. I think that's bullshit. That you have to do it at least to set the fucking principle, right? To do the was one of the worst who escaped justice through his own death. Yeah, yeah, it's always that way, eh? These fuckwits, they always escape it through their death. It's the same thing with like George Pell, you know. Developer Sings Wee Lee. I hope I'm saying that right. Used to return from Singapore for a retrial. Bjelke Peterson said his defense costs sent him broke. Oh, Bjelke Peterson memories. Don't you worry about that. The Joh Bjelke Peterson memoirs were published the same year. He retired to Bethany, where his son John and wife Karen, his son's wife Karen, set up bed and breakfast cottages on the property. He developed progressive supernatural supranuclear parsley. Oh, palsy. Fuck me, man. A condition similar to Parkinson's. I want to say, oh, that's a shame, but you fucking deserved it, bastard. You fucking deserved it, and so much worse. What was it again? You corrupt old bastard. In 2003, he lodged a 338 million compensation claim with the Queensland Labor government for loss of business opportunities resulting from the Fitzgerald inquiry. Oh my God! Again, Trump before he Trumped ever Trumped. Like, oh my God, this is such a Trump thing. The claim was based on the assertion that the inquiry had not been lawfully commissioned by a state cabinet and that it had acted outside its powers. The government rejected the claim and is advanced to the government, tabled in Parliament. Crown Solicitor Conrad Lau recommended dismissing the claim and said, oh, yeah, Bjelke Peterson was fortunate not to have faced a second trial. It's like, dude, what the fuck you think you're doing? You were lucky you got away with not having to do a second trial. You think you're in your right to be able to claim business damages? You old corrupt bastard. Death. He died in St. Albans Hospital in Kingaroy. Well, you die where you're on 23 April 2005, aged 95, 95, 94, with his wife and family members by his side. Oh, how lovely. He received a state funeral, really, at which Prime Minister John Howard and speakers. Why? Why would you do that for him? Beattie, who had been sued by Bjelke Peterson for defamation, was arrested during the 1971 Springbok Tour protest said, I think too often in the adversarial nature of politics, we forget that behind every leader, behind every politician is indeed a family, and we shouldn't forget that. Oh my God. See, this was the beginning of the end, really, wasn't it? This was the beginning of the end. Like, if you can't bring yourself to be critical and to like kind of shit talk Joh Bjelke Peterson in his death, rest in piss kind of shit. Um, and you're a Labour guy, and you were arrested, who had been sued by Bjelke Peterson for defamation, and was arrested during the 1971 Springbok Tour protests, and said that, like, this wasn't adversarial nature of politics. This was just he would have had you killed. It would have been fine if you'd gone and more shit beaten out of you. As the funeral was taking place in Kingaroy, about 2,000 protesters gathered in Brisbane to ensure that those who suffered under successive Bjelke Peterson governments were not forgotten. Protest almost read Drew Pavlo. um, Drew Hutton said, Queenslanders should remember what is described as a dark passage in the state's history. Bjelke Peterson was buried beside his trees that he planted and he nurtured at the Kingaroy family property, Bethany. Oh, okay. The Bjelke Peterson Dam in Moffat Dale, and that is named after him. Yeah, so that is the Bjelke Peterson. Um, oh, that's right. There's even more stuff that, yeah, so hang on. We're gonna go through this section, is it like, yeah, the leadership style, personality and leadership style. And then pretty well gonna cap it off there because it's been really long. I'm gonna actually after, well, not afterwards, I'll probably tomorrow or whatever, or some point, going to actually edit this recording down and post this as its own video because random point that I'm trying to make here is as funny as it is to read through the history of Bjelke Peterson, just in the sense of how similar he is to Trump in a lot of ways. It's just Trump is the leader of America, so it's, blown up to such a proportion. I am genuinely concerned that this is the direction Queensland is going back in. That is the point that we are going back in that direction. The only thing is, it's now the Liberal Party because I don't really think they ever really posed any of this shit on some sort of principle of camp about, you know, justice, ethics, morals, whatever. They were trying to protect their own ass. They were trying to protect their own ass, I think. And here we go. Having it all happen again. All right, so authoritarianism. Queensland political scientist Ray Weir described Bjelke Peterson as an authoritarian who treated democratic values with contempt and was tolerant and resentful of opposition. Yeah. Yet who also demonstrated a down-home charm and an old-fashioned courtesy, as well as kindness, yeah, as well as kindness to colleagues. Those who worked closely with him described him as stubborn and with a propensity to fly into rages, rant and rave like Adolf Hitler. Creating fantastic performances as he shook with rage, becoming increasingly incoherent. Many of his National Party colleagues were in terror of him on such occasions. Raised by migrant parents, what a, yeah, in Spartan rural surround, he combined a strong ethic with an ascetic lifestyle. What does that mean? Oh, lifestyle that was strongly shaped by his Lutheran. As a young man, Bjelke Peterson lived alone for 15 years in an old cow bale with a leaky bark roof. Only the most basic of facilities. That is like the weird thing about him is like he literally did apparently like come from nothing. Came all. He had a lifelong habit of hard work and long days, and while here, often slept for just 4 hours a night. Oh my God. He valued the school of life, the hard knocks of life, more than formal education and showed little respect for academics and universities, although he accepted an honorary doctorate of laws from the University of Queensland in May 1985, prompting criticism from both students and staff. I wonder that. Ware dismissed Bjelke Peterson's claim that he was a reluctant and accidental entrant to state politics, concluding that he seized opportunity represented and held tenaciously power, and was later willing to use any device to remain. She said that although Bjelke Peterson denied ever knowing anything about corruption, the evidence suggests this is he ignored it because to acknowledge its presence was to hand a weapon to a political enemy prepared to trade off corruption for police loyalty. Yeah, of course, of course. That was what he was most concerned about. Wanted loyalty. Biographers have suggested that Bjelke Peterson, raised under a resented patriarch, himself came to play the strong patriarch, refusing to be accountable to anyone. Rather than explaining himself or answering questions, he demanded to be taken on trust. He believed God had chosen him to save Australia from socialism. Yes! What does this remind you of? And also had a profound sense of Christian conscience that he said guided political explaining your whole instinct cries out, whether it's good or bad. I just love, I just love God had chosen him to save Australia from social. A cousin of Bjelke Peterson said the Premier has an inner certainty. A cousin of Bjelke Peterson has said the Premier has an inner certainty that he knows the answers to our political and social woes and is a Christian expected to be trusted, thus needing no constitutional checks and balances. Oh my God. I wonder where this shit comes from. Oh God. Oh God. Relations with the media, guided by media advisor Alan Callahan, with whom he worked from only for 8 years. Bjelke Peterson was an astute manager of news media. He made himself available to reporters and held daily press conferences where he, quote, fed the jokes. Callahan released a steady stream of press releases, timing them to coincide with periods when news editors were most desperate for news. For most of Bjelke Peterson's premiership, Queensland newspapers were supportive of his government. Oh. Generally supporting the police and government on the street march issue. Oh, of course they did. While Brisbane's Courier Mail endorsed the return of the coalition government at every state election between 1957 and 1986. Endorsed the return of the coalition. Okay. According to Ray Ware, sorry, Bjelke Peterson demanded total loyalty of the media and was unforgiving and vindictive if reporting was not to his satisfaction. In 1984, he reacted to a series of critical articles in the Courier Mail by switching the government's $1 million classified advertising account to the rival Daily Sun. Government's advertising account to the rival. Oh. He banned a Courier Mail reporter who was critical of his excessive use of the government aircraft, and Ware claims other journalists who wrote critical articles became the subject of rumour mongering, were harassed by traffic police, or found that leaks from the government dried up. Journalists covering industrial disputes and picketing were also afraid of arrest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was extremely anti-labor, like organized labor. In 1985, the Australian Journalists Association withdrew from the system of police passes because of police refusal to accredit certain journalists. Journalists, editors, and producers were also deterred from critical stories by Bjelke Peterson's increasing use of defamation actions in order to try to, quote, stop talk about a corrupt government. Queensland historian Ross Fitzgerald, convenient name, was threatened with criminal libel in 1984 when he sought to publish a critical history of the state. The Premier and his ministers launched 24 defamation actions against the opposition leader and Labor Party and trade union figures, with 14 of them publicly funded. He saw no role for the media in making government accountable, telling the Australian Financial Review in 1986, the greatest thing that could happen to the state and the nation is when we get rid of the media. I wonder what that is like. Then we would live in peace and tranquility, and no one would know anything. He's so honest. He's so honest. You gotta give him that. Callahan's advice to Bjelke Peterson included the recommendation that he maintained his rambling style of communication with mangled syntax. Why? Recognizing it added to his homespun appeal to ordinary people and also allowed him to avoid giving answers. His catchphrase response to unwelcome queries was, "Don't you worry about that," a phrase that was used as the title of his Ware wrote, "His verbal stumbling communicated decent simplicity and trustworthiness, and in order to enhance his popular appeal, Bjelke Peterson appears to have exaggerated or at least not tried to rid himself of his famous speaking style." Heritage and environment showed little concern for heritage and environmental issues, attracting widespread public fury over the 1979 demolition of Brisbane's historic Bellevue Hotel. That's right. And favoured oil drilling on the Great Barrier Reef and sand mining on Moreton Island. He opposed He opposed the expansion of Aboriginal land rights, barred state officials from meeting World Council of Churches delegates who were studying the treatment of Aboriginal people in Queensland, and demonstrated a strong moralistic streak, banning Playboy magazine, surprise, opposing school sex education and condom vending machines, and in 1980 proposing a ban on women flying south for abortions. Hmm. In May 1985, the government conducted a series of raids on so-called abortion clinics. Checks out, checks out. Industrial relations had a confrontational approach to industrial relations. As a backbencher, he had made clear his opposition to unions and the 40-hour week. Of course he did. In 1979, he pushed for legislation that would lead to the lifetime loss of a driver's license for union members using their own vehicles to organize strikes. Lifetime loss? Are you fucking kidding me? For 4 days in 1981, Queensland power workers had been using rotating blackouts and restrictions as a means of pressure. Bjelke Peterson responded by closing licensed clubs and hotels and publishing the names and addresses of the 260 involved workers with the aim of inspiring members of the public to harass them. The intimidation tactic worked, and the union resumed normal work schedules within 15 minutes of government ads arriving in Brisbane newspapers. I believe the government now knows how in the future to approach such disputes and essential services, said Bjelke Peterson. Ugh. In 1982, he ordered the dismissal of teachers who were conducting rolling stoppages on the issue of class sizes. Wait, what? Conducting rolling stoppages. Right, yeah. The same year, he invoked the Essential Services Act to declare a state of emergency when government blue-collar workers launched industrial action to support a 38-hour week. Hang on, almost done. His biggest showdown. How many more is there? Okay. His biggest showdown with unions came in February 1985, when electrical workers opposing the increasing use of contract labor in their industry placed a ban on performing routine maintenance. Bjelke Peterson ordered the shutdown of several of the state's generators. That led to 2 weeks of blackouts. Just fuck it. I know that you guys were doing all your union shit for the sake of this, but performing routine maintenance. But fuck it. We'll just shut down a whole heap of them. The government declared a state of emergency on 7 February, sacked as many as 1,100 striking workers, but offered their jobs back if they would sign a no-strike clause and work a 40-hour week. Most accepted, but 400 lost their jobs in superannuation. Labour compared the government with the Nazi regime, calling the new laws police state legislation. Yeah. All right. This will probably be the last one because this is like the one I couldn't help but laughing at. Bjelke Peterson believed that he and his government knew what was best for Aboriginal Australians. He excused racially discriminatory legislation as a protective measure and generally supported Aboriginal self-determination, at least partly, as striking a blow against the monolithic centralism of Canberra under Labor. Yeah. Bjelke Peterson blocked the proposed sale of a pastoral property on the Cape York Peninsula to a group of Aboriginal people because, according to Cabinet policy, the Queensland Government does not view favourably proposals to acquire large areas of additional freehold or leasehold land for development by Aborigines or Aboriginal groups in isolation. This dispute resulted in the case of Corwada versus Bjelke Peterson, which was decided partly in the High Court in 1982 and partly in the Supreme Court of Queensland in 1988. The courts found that Bjelke Peterson's policy discriminated against Indigenous folks. The Uniting Church supported Aboriginal groups at them in their struggle with the Queensland government after it granted a 1,900 square kilometre mining lease to a mining consortium under extremely favourable conditions. The Orokan people challenged the legislation, winning their case in the Supreme Court of Queensland, but later losing when the Queensland government appealed to the Privy Council of the United Kingdom. Yeah, fuck it, Let's just appeal it to the United Kingdom. Was opposed by Peterson was opposed by Sir Robert Sparks, church groups, and the federal government over a 1982 push to abolish Aboriginal and Islander community reserves and to give title to the reserve lands to the local councils elected by communities, titles that could be revoked by the government for unspecified reasons. Bjelke Peterson claimed that there were overriding issues of defense and security because of, here we go, because of fears of a communist plot to create a separate black nation in Australia. Like, what does that mean? It's just so crazy. It's crazy. In 1982, Bjelke Peterson also denied John Kawada, I mean, I guess that's what that is, an Aboriginal Wickman, the sale of the Archer River cattle station that covered large amounts of the Wick ancestral homeland due to Aboriginal people not being allowed to buy large areas of land, which is just like, what? Why? Kawada, I mean, obviously because he's racist, like, to be clear. Appealed the decision to the High Court, arguing that the Queensland government could not do this under the Racial Discrimination Act. The High Court overruled Bjelke Peterson's decision, allowing the Wik Nation's traditional land to be brought by Kawada. The sale was to proceed, but at the last minute, Bjelke Peterson, in an act described by an Australian Conservation Foundation councillor Kevin Guy as one of spite and prejudice, declared the Archer River property a national park, the Archer Bend National Park, now known as that, to ensure that no one could ever own it. However, on 6 October 2010, Premier Anna Bligh announced that a 75,000 hectares, which did we see the this one? No, let me just not. Um, Portion of the park would be given over to the Wik Mungkani peoples as freehold land. On 22 May 2012, Campbell Newman handed the park to the land trust representing the Wik Munkin, uh, those folks, and transferred a 75,000 hectares portion of land revoked from the park as freehold land. Anti-homosexual remarks during his period in office frequently raised fears of a conspiracy of Southern homosexuals to gain electoral advantage and to oppose the policies of the federal government or other states. Ah, he really was. He really was a guy, you know. Really was a guy. All right. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. There is so much to the Helga Peterson, but yeah, the gist is I'm worried that we're going back to this. Gay communists. Oh noes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be. That would be. Gay communists trying to create. Thanks for down memory lane, Mason. Indeed, sad to see the pendulums. I just, yeah, again, it is. It is. I thing I'm worried most about is that people have forgotten why this was a bad era, and because it's now the liberals, they're not going to have the exact same association. And then we got on top of that the whole anti-woke thing. At least back then, that wasn't really such a concept. Like, yes, there was obviously a huge amount of conservatives, but it was, I don't know, I think it had a bit more entwined with, I'm going to say it more entwined with Christianity, but like there was less on-ramp into this ideology, to this politics. Anyways, that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And maybe there's a space going on at the jump in it and have a chat. Otherwise, I'll see you. Bye bye.